What's going to happen? Will the world economy collapse? Will something happen even worse? Will the whole energy infrastructure of the world go up in smoke? So you have to, when they do it without planning, when they do it without understanding.
Yeah, that's the problem. Not that like this act alone.
We didn't do it with the planning. We needed better plans.
It's just crazy. Like, no, dude, you can just say, say this is fucking unacceptable. Sad to see Chris Murphy echoing false neocon narratives about Iran's threats to the U.S. It's not sad to see.
He can't help himself.
It's by design. At some point, we have to wake up to the reality that this is by design. Okay? I think that the entire infrastructure of communication on the Democratic Party is basically to make it seem like they have this wishy-washy approach to what Donald Trump is saying, but they secretly fucking love it. Okay? That's it. Wake up. It's absolutely controlled opposition with like very few Democrats who genuinely are saying, nah, this is fucking bullshit. Okay? That's it. Why else do they always find just the right amount of votes to not launch a reasonable critique, like any sort of process critique even, that they claim that they have with the administration's actions?
Also,
there's always enough spoilers in safe seats, mind you, because this is important. If someone was ideologically committed, right, to the cause, then they would come out and say, I'm voting against this. This is my principled stance. I don't want the War Powers Act to be called because Donald Trump is doing the right thing. I love Israel and I want American soldiers to die for Israel. But it's never the people that have said that, like Gottheimer or Moskowitz, that legitimately believe it. Or even now, what's his face? Goldman has come out and he's doing the
You mean my congressman?
Yeah, you're a congressman.
I'm letting you know. I'm making this like I am going to door knock for Bradlander. I want Dan Goldman out of my goddamn life.
Noah Kulwin in the building, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, you're looking at my favorite.
Yeah, I mean this has been a very Cuba heavy 2 hours of this broadcast because like
why did you go there or something?
Good one. Well, one of us did.
I'm sorry, two of us did.
Yeah, I know,
at different times.
I'm just saying.
Oh, you're just saying.
You were missed. You were missed.
Thank you.
You were missed. But yeah.
The geography textbook that people are rubbing their hands together. Right? Oh, wow.
Oh, did you see this? This is just a compilation of some of his insanity. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, Noah Kulwin in the building. Here, hold on. Let me do the fucking. There it is.
Oh, there it is.
It's the wider shot, but like I feel like it's not good enough.
It's not good enough.
It's not like framed right. You know what I mean?
I mean, we're kind of in the middle.
Yeah, but I want to make sure that it's like perfect. We're testing out some things. You were out here. You were experiencing it from afar. Did you think that there would be this level of propaganda and mass disinformation from the humanitarian aid mission? Like it's. I mean, when I fucking first got access to the internet, I couldn't believe. I was like, this is the most insane thing I've ever experienced in my life.
I will say there are like two things. One is to your specific question of did I expect like this particular level of response? Like no, it is a little nuts. On the other hand, I'm not surprised. I think that there is a very vocal contingent of people who know like half of a thing, half of like one fact or something, and are just like primed to respond in a certain kind of way to stuff they see involving people on the internet whom they recognize or not. I don't know.
Do you find it strange how much Israel is also like Israeli agents of Hasbara are also
I'm sorry,
participating?
Are you asking me about whether I thought it was fucking weird that Nas Daily
was stalking me in fucking Cuba?
Yeah, no, I think it's like, listen, we are going to send we are going to send one of Israel's greatest lol cows. We are going to be sending. No, that's what I was like, what the fuck is that guy doing there? And then like it was really funny because I only saw a couple of his posts after he had arrived or whatever, and so it's like, did he go there just to like
I think
annoy you? And now he's like, what is he even doing?
But
there?
he couldn't even like. I guess he couldn't find me at all when I was there because I was too busy fucking doing shit, right? And because I spent like basically I have like 8+ hours of recording,
Yeah.
nonstop of just like interviews. I interviewed Cosio for like 2 hours, which is crazy. Interviewed doctors and Belly of the Beast, by the way. What a fucking
Great.
what a
people?
gem! What a gem of an
people?
operation! Fuck me. I mean, Reed is such a stud.
I mean, Reed's the man.
He is the
Reed's
fucking
the man. No,
Idaho
Belly of the
boy.
Beast is wonderful. Those are people who do incredible things with such few resources.
Yeah.
It's astonishing.
Yeah, they're brilliant. They're fantastic. Anyway, but what I was saying is, so they set up a lot of their the people that they had actually put in their documentaries, because like this is all about sharing and trying to get the fucking word out, basically, right? And I cannot recommend Belly of the Beast enough. They have such incredible high fidelity, high def, impactful, high impact docu-series out there. They're phenomenal. But in any case, also obviously Blowback Pod as well. Season two on Cuba is
in our new season about Angola, which is a central story of it is about the Cuban intervention,
about how the Cubans have occupied other countries.
Oh yeah, no, the Cubans invaded Angola at the well. This is the thing. It's actually a world historic first. It is the first time that one country invaded another country at the invitation.
Well, that's not the first time,
country.
Because if you recall, how could you forget famously when America invaded the UK during World War II? This was a massively consequential invasion.
It's actually really true. The first part of Band of Brothers is about that.
Yeah.
Is actually about the American invasion of the UK, which then, by the way, I'm a bit of a history nerd, so you guys should know this. In the 1960s, there was a British invasion. And that was when the Beatles and all them came over.
Yeah,
and that was the other way around.
Yeah, it's just like there's always invasions happening, and you need to stay woke. You need to stay woke to know these kinds of different invasions. I have to pee real quick, but I just wanted to hear you can go off on your opinions about the mass disinfo campaign and shit while I go do that real quick. I'll be back in a second.
All right, how's it going, chat? Cuban embassy. Oh yeah, the Cuban proposal. I don't know what Hasan has already said about it. Although it's worth saying that, Cuba has made offers to compensate expropriated owners since like the 60s. Yeah. Hi, Dad. How does he look at this shit all day? It's fucking nuts. Yeah, I hope you guys, were patient for him coming back, because I know the stuff that he's been working on is really exciting, and I'm excited to learn more about the footage he shot. It was very, very sad that I couldn't go, but I also did get to go earlier this year with Brendan, and like a couple weeks after the Maduro kidnapping, our second to last day there was the day that they announced the oil blockade. So I got to see some firsthand of what I'm sure has gotten a lot worse in terms of the situation on the ground. And now I'm just acclimating to this West Coast weather. I should just diarize. Just do like a vlog, talk about my day. All right.
What?
Babysitting's over. He's back.
Yeah, I'm back.
Did you talk yet about the drop site report? I saw you pulled that up.
Yeah. I brought it up a moment. I brought it up briefly in the beginning. Noah, big fan of your work in the Book of Genesis.
Yeah, it's.
Can you please tell us how to get off Twitter? Your Cuba trip made it to Sky News Australia. Wait, is it a Lefties Losing It moment?
Lefties losing.
Think of that. And in this convoy to Cuba is a very high-profile streamer, Hasan.
Oh, it's a Josh Hammer.
Yeah, this lady fucking hates me. And this guy, she always has this guy on to talk shit. It's so funny.
They have like the same, their eyebrows are the exact same shape, and they both look like they're unhappy with Hasan Piker.
Yeah, it's awesome. Hasan Piker is one of the most scummy, villainous individuals in all of US media. Lefties Losing It. That's the name of the she has a segment called Lefties Losing It where she talks about that. Anyway, move a little bit to the right.
Yeah,
this
yeah,
is
yeah,
how
yeah.
we this is how
Oh,
we
this is how
frame
we're doing it
better.
now?
This is
Got
how we
it.
no, not all the way. Not all the way. Come a little bit closer.
They're talking about a matter of inches.
All right, bro, that's it. Dude, it's important. I want to make sure that this is like perfect.
What in God's name is he doing in
What
Cuba,
in
Josh?
God's
This guy
name
has
is he doing in fucking Cuba? Sorry.
a multi-million-dollar property. He's got a massive following, very wealthy, and yet he advocates for Marxist ideology. Make it make sense to me, Josh.
Make it make sense. There's never
Well,
been a
Rita,
wealthy socialist before.
I can't make it make sense. Hasan Piker is one of the most scummy, villainous individuals in all of American media, and that is frankly saying a lot.
That was awesome. Sorry. Scummy and villainous individuals in all of American
I
media.
have this profound effect. I don't know what it is, but like people who are, you know, like Hasbara operatives, when they fucking, the mere mention of my name causes them to get aneurysms. It's awesome.
The stuff that this guy says is just frankly heinous. He frankly sounds like a Nazi sometimes, speaking about Israel, speaking of the Jews. That's really non-exaggeration. I mean, he speaks glowingly of what Hamas did on October 7th there. He's outright praising it, much like Zoran Mamdani's wife there. He is a self-avowed
Much like
communist.
Zoran
This guy
Mamdani's wife
is as
there.
out there as it gets. And the worst part, Rita, is that he is welcomed. Indeed, he is feted, he is lauded by many Democrat officials. Most recently, he was welcomed.
Yeah, that's right.
Woo! That's the worst part. Like the worst part isn't that I'm like that betrays the severity of the statement. If I'm like a Nazi, right, and I'm like mass producing like Nazi propaganda, why would it be the worst part that like the Democrats welcome me? Like that wouldn't be the worst part. The worst part would be the Nazi propaganda that I'm mass disseminating with or without the Democrats like aiding me, right?
Well, no, it's actually, this reminds me of, this is how like right wingers in the Cold War used to talk about libs, where it was like how, you know, how he's talking about referring to Democratic politicians here, like William F. Buckley. But you see, the thing is, the liberals are worse than the communists because they're dupes. They're dupes. They don't know that they're being used like this, and that's like clearly what the idea is here: is that you are duping, you are doing takia. You are doing tricks
just
and
like,
shenanigans.
Just like my Shia goat Zogron. I'm gonna see him this weekend, so I gotta cool it on this Zogron talk. Oh man.
The Epstein files obsessed congressman out of California there. He was saying that Hasan Piker was great. I stand with Hasan Piker there. It's just disgusting stuff. But I will say, I've actually been to Cuba. It's pretty rare for Americans to go. I've actually been to Cuba. I've seen it for myself. You cannot possibly see Cuba, Rita, which along with North Korea is probably one of the last examples of true legitimate communism remaining on planet Earth. This utterly failed, horrific, murderous.
Hasan Piker and other American subversives are breaking the law by staying at prohibited hotels on the current trip. It's not, by the way. To rescue Cuba's failing Castro regime, prosecute these miscreants.
Maybe learn the law first.
Yeah,
buddy.
It's so funny that they on the one hand.
Yeah, actually, no. Oh, we forgot, Hasan. Before we sent you to Cuba, and there was all these all this planning, all this research. We forgot.
Yeah.
Oh my God, we made the really obvious fuck up, which is why you're now sitting in Los Angeles and made it here back safely and easily.
No, literally.
Oh, because you. Oh my God.
It's fucking hilarious.
Bro, these people are not serious.
But this one was awesome because like they unironically reveal how stupid this restriction actually is.
Yes.
Because they got really excited to try to get me prosecuted by the federal government. By the way, Assange just broke the U.S. law. Oh, and he can face $250,000 fine and up to 10 years of prison once he gets back to the States. Do you think that that's a fucking valid thing? Like, even if I were to have violated his OFAC restriction.
You know what? Something tells me that High King Fëanor, Alpha Chad of Middle Earth, I listen, man, I'm pretty good at sensing the veracity of sources here, but something tells me that guy may not be playing with a full deck.
Yeah, but it's just like fucking nuts that like most other people are too busy doing like they stayed in 5-star hotels on their own volition, and then First they were like, oh, they stayed in 5-star hotels, like, oh, they're fucking, they're assholes, all this shit. And now there's other people being like, actually, they didn't do that, because like openly admitting that there is this like ridiculous American restriction on where you can stay if you fucking go to Cuba. So, you know, I much prefer
it's
this.
Also like there's so much like if you're going, you know, like, I mean, it's also like, look, like the truth is also like a lot of these rules were loosened under Obama. And so there is like a greater degree of freedom in how Americans can visit Cuba and where they can stay and so on. That said, even when I went, there are a bunch of rules that you do abide by in terms of like not partaking in like, you know, tourism activities and things like that aren't part of like an itinerary, you know, an approved itinerary or whatever. There is like a kind of like, there are actual rules and guidelines that people follow. And if any of these people wanted to pick up the phone and call, I don't know, like one of the zillion travel agents in the US that does organize these kinds of trips and has some passing familiarity with it, I think that they would soon learn that the $250,000 fine and that prospective prison time for you isn't really on the table.
Yeah. But you rode on air-conditioned buses. Yeah, it's just like, don't stay in the Communism Hotel. That's illegal, bro. You don't want to know what would happen. It's really bad. I swear to God, bro. Yeah. It's
also,
utterly ridiculous.
You know what everyday Cubans are really pissed about getting right now? Foreign currency coming to their...
I know. Everyone, yeah, you went too. You experienced it.
Like
we were walking around. We were walking around town in Old Havana, and every Cuban that we encountered were like, "Oh, why are you here? I hate that. I hate that you're here. It's the worst thing." That's what they were saying. If you look at the internet, that's literally, dude. It was unbelievable. I saw all of these accounts after the fact from like a day prior, because like the Twitter algorithm is totally busted and it shows you like tweets from a day prior. And it was like, these guys, like the Cubans are rising up and they're surrounding the hotel right now. And there's armed guards defending the Americans in the hotels. The Castro regime is like, you know, turning on their own people. I'm just like, bro, I was in the hotel. Like, it's not a thing that happened. Like, you just made it up, and it's like super viral.
I mean, but this is where it gets to the level of like, some of it is that there's not like an immediate count, because there's like an information gap, you know, because it's Cuba, because it's not like as connected and plugged into what's going on, and there aren't also like a bunch of eyes on the street there that can immediately rebut it. You can spin a narrative very quickly here any set of ways.
Yeah, because the people that are there also don't have access to the internet either, so they can't just like see the shit that's going around and like counter it in real time. It's fucking insane. It's totally insane. Anyway, let's finish this, and then I'm going to move on to situation monitoring, where you know, we got to talk about the spectacular success of Operation Epic Fortnite, Operation Epstein's Fury, whatever you want to fucking call it. Massive success.
I've just been going with epic fail.
Yeah, epic fail. W's all around. W's abound.
And when you actually see Cuba, when you see this beautiful water, Havana could be in a...
Okay, whatever. Actually, you know what? Fuck this guy. I'm done with this shit. This person was also going through the conversation, all the fucking psyops. This is the last video I'm gonna watch. And then, what is this? Wearing a $5,000 fit.
Oh, but this is like,
to tell poor people capitalism is bad is wild. Dude, why are they doing Depop? Do they not understand when you're fucking rich and famous, people literally send you shit? Like, do you not get that? I mean, maybe you don't. And some I purchased on my own, of course, but like, what is this? Like, what is this fucking Depop shit? Like, oh, get this fit. They got the wrong watch, missed by $300. Yeah, it's actually the luxury model. Yeah, it's more expensive than that. Yeah, breaking news, dude. I'm rich. Yeah, motherfucker. Piker Broadcasting Service, baby. Sponsored by
I will say, look.
You the people, for you the people, motherfucker. That's how it is. Voluntary subscriptions.
When Brendan and I went, we did, out of respect for the Cuban people, we took off our shoes and walked around with our feet in Kleenex boxes.
I'm glad that you did that.
I didn't want the people of Cuba to have to see my New Balances.
Yeah, they would have been very offended.
It would have been very offensive.
Would it not be more performative to go out and buy some fucking Walmart displays?
Yes, exactly. That is correct. That is the
Yeah.
exact right attitude. Is that the actual like insulting thing
Also,
would be if you did like if
the
you
Cubans have drip.
Yes, they do have drip. I mean,
Yeah.
it's and also like there's like I think something that has like been kind of interesting is also, as I'm sure you saw, is that like there is in Cuba, like it's not like huge, but part of what the Obama thaw like produced was something of like a private sector, and also the increase in remittances from abroad and the amount of money that comes in from abroad that does allow certain people, like certain classes within Cuba, to have access to these goods. So it's like there is like it's not like people there haven't fucking seen a Cartier like glass, like they haven't seen nice glasses before.
Yeah.
There's a kind of, I mean, it's like I'm not surprised, but it is a little bit like it's clear that there's like an enormous amount of ignorance about the most basic facts there.
Yeah. It's just all of it literally reduces to if you are in any way, shape, or form, like better off
Also,
than
they
the
did
average.
Brace so dirty in that.
Yeah.
That's so fucking funny. Sorry.
Yeah.
That's really, it's like, oh, wow, look at this rich fucking, look at this asshole. This guy's a piece of shit. And then look at the guy next to him who doesn't matter. He's actually, that shirt he's wearing is for pores. The jeans, too. That little hat.
It's crazy how all the criticism about you having money and using it all stem from communities of other wealthy people who don't do nearly as much activism as you. FD Signifier himself said that none of us are ever going to know about 99% of the instances of you putting your money where your mouth is, nor should we. Yeah, you will never know. Well, hopefully you will never know. Okay, let's be real. Anyway, rich and wannabe rich guys see you as a class trader. I know, but like, you know what it reminds me of? Low key. It reminds me of like white supremacist guys that will be like, you're a race trader. It almost feels that way where you're like, why are you doing this? You should not be advocating for the poor. You should be sitting around and being like, I'm rich. It's fucking awesome. Maybe one day you'll get there. And like lie to the people.
This has always been like, this is like whether you're talking about like Gore Vidal or Oscar Wilde, like there has always been a tradition of like when somebody who comes from the upper classes and espouses left-wing politics that are outside the established norms of acceptable mainstream discourse within their country, like this is a natural byproduct of it. Now, when you look at like, well, traditionally, out of what classes do radical politics bring, at least in terms of the idea level, if not like like as the class with like the ability to have agency over society or whatever, it is a class of like educated people with me. Like it's not. This is like a thing that happens over and over and over again, and for as long as there are socialists in a capitalist society who espouse such attitudes, there will be this like very aggravating and facile.
What's the alternative? What's the alternative for me to just like sit around and be like,
vow of poverty? I mean, that's that's what they want. They want every socialist.
But then it's LARPing.
I agree. No, I agree. That's what they think though. Like they believe that the LARP is the real.
No, but like it also is the exact same thing where it's like, oh. You sit around at home and you chirp. You don't do anything, right? You sit around and you don't do anything. It's all bullshit. You're fake. So when I do actually take my ass out and go do things, then they go, oh, you're performative. You're performative. Okay? It's a double bind. There is no world where they will give you props, which this is not about that anyway. It doesn't fucking matter. Who gives a shit what these goddamn monsters say? They're fucking evil.
Conversations about people coming here to Cuba to deliver humanitarian aid are very interesting to me. One of the headlines and some of the commentary that I've seen is in terms of all of the people that came here and they stayed at a 4-star hotel while the rest of Cuba was in darkness. I want to remind you all that while it's not illegal for American citizens to come here to Cuba, it is absolutely illegal for us to stay in any of these hotels that you see on this screenshot. We cannot stay at all of these listed brand hotels. We cannot stay at a mom and pop hotel. We cannot stay at anywhere that is Cuban owned in Cuba, because that was instated by your United States government. And those who do stay with Cuban families, because the first time I came to Cuba in November, I stayed with a family. They actually have to take our passport numbers and register us because of our United States government. Again, it is not illegal for American citizens to travel to Cuba. However, just like the sanctions and the blockade, the United States government makes damn sure that we don't support the Cuban people. The second thing I saw was, oh, all of these influencers spend all of this money when they just could have given giving it to the Cuban people. How? Do you know that because of the blockade and the sanctions, that United States citizens...
You literally can't.
You can't, dude. You
it's
can't.
Such a crazy...
I love that.
It makes me feel insane.
Bro, why don't we start a GoFundMe for Cuba?
Yeah, bro. It unironically reminds me of like being... like just having the knowledge of what Israel has done for 80 years, like right up, 75 years at that point, like right after October 7, and just like trying to explain to people that would just look at you like you're the biggest monstrous piece of shit of all time, where you're like, I know the truth and I hope one day you will too. And lucky for us, I guess people do now recognize it. At least they're scratching the surface of it, but it's like, it's the same principle here. Like, this machine, this bureaucratic sanctions regime is designed in this insidious way for it to be fucking invisible. So when you actually describe it to people, they look at you and they're like, that's not true.
Yeah.
So they don't believe you.
Well, and also like
They don't fucking believe you. You
it's
can't
not,
send
and,
money.
and it's not just about Cuba. It's also like, I think one of the things that people in general predict, sanctions and like economic policy and the use as an economic weapon. I think that it's one of those things that Americans typically and people on the internet like love to, like they're very blasé about it. They're extraordinarily blasé about it, not recognizing that, in the case of Cuba, for example, Helms-Burton means, it puts incredible restrictions on foreign companies that do business in Cuba.
Yeah.
Like it's like that. What's that meme where it's like, I consent. Somebody you forgot to ask.
Yeah.
And that's like everything Cuba does except the person you forgot to ask is the United States. It's like, I think that there's and it's not just Cuba. I mean, Venezuela, it has been the case. And by the way, with these other countries, like Venezuela, for example,
Iran,
or in the case of Syria, where we're pursuing this, rapprochement, like, or changeover, like, the sanctions were kept in place even after Assad had fallen at first, because there is and remains this effort to use, like, it's a position of basic strategy. It's in the toolkit that every president, every White House, every administration uses, that kind of coercion is acceptable. Even though, I think if we look around the world, we would find that the extent and violence of that coercion and the effect that it has on populations, there's nobody that's doing anything like it that comes even close to the scale at which the United States operates, to the number of countries in which we do it in different places around the globe.
And the Lancet study showed that it was the death toll of America's sanctions regime, which is complementary to Jeff Stein's piece on Washington Post before he left, was 38 million total. 38 million deaths born out of America's ridiculous sanctions, where we've sanctioned, I believe, 69% of all low-income countries around the fucking planet, forced them to basically create a secondary marketplace in and of itself. It's unfucking believable how cruel it is. And it's designed in this invisible manner. And not only is it designed in this invisible manner, but it's also, it makes you go crazy when you find out about it, when you realize what's going on and you try to explain it to people and people go, nah, that's not real. Listening to Mearsheimer talking about Lance's report that since the early 70s, U.S. sanctions caused millions of deaths and led to ruin equivalent to the worst war. I suppose I could just Google this, but was the Cuba model for this new regime of economic terrorism. Reaching for the nearest LLM tells me that Japan in World War II and that China and North Korea preceded Cuba. But still, it seems that the kind of sanctions placed on Cuba in the early 60s did serve as a model for their fuller routine deployment starting in the 70s.
I mean, the way I would periodize it, I mean, like Greg Grandin is literally one of the great historians working today. So, permit me like a slight reply to him here, but the way I would put it is that
it's just funny that he's relying on an LLM.
I mean, but it's because you can't Google shit anymore, and that's the exact kind of thing I would Google. But now if you Google it, it's just like, here's what Gemini AI says, and then here's like 20 results of crap. Anyway, I think that the thing that Cuba distinguished, like the context in which Cuba was placed under embargo. So Eisenhower, it's January 1961. Eisenhower is leaving office. And in the period leading up to Eisenhower leaving office, the U.S. the U.S. agreement to purchase Cuban sugar is voided. They implement all sorts of measures to punish the Castro government. And then in April of
they openly stated in the CIA this came after, right? The CIA documents that were declassified years later that said that like the primary purpose of the sanctions were for it to be invisible, but to like create great.
It's been made explicit, and we know that like the point of the sanctions was not to produce any like intermediate effect, or it wasn't about what the rhetoric is, which is about punishing the rulers of the country or the whomever. It is about squeezing the country to create pressure from below on the people up top. It's not the other way around. And so, at the time that these very punitive measures were introduced, well, that's the beginning of 61, right before JFK takes office, and then he keeps it. And then in April 61 is the Bay of Pigs. And ever since that period, and then I would, sort of course, the following year with the missile crisis, we can kind of see, I guess, the beginnings of a Cold War era policy of sanctions regimes as this kind of deadly weapon. And I would argue, to respond to Grannon, that the Cuba model was that. It was a model. And you can point to Korea, you can point to North Korea after the Korean War, you can look at all of these other examples that come a bit earlier. But in terms of, it's hard to describe, just like in the 1960s, what was the biggest CIA field office in the entire world outside of Washington? It was Miami. Cuba was the biggest desk of all of the CIA's task forces going on, perhaps outside of Vietnam. It was the largest. It was where there was an enormous amount of investment of financial resources on the part of the CIA and so on, but it was also a place of clearly experimentation. It was a place where they sought to develop new ways, and there's been like 500 some odd, I think 537 recorded attempts on Castro's life.
Yeah, I thought it was 600 plus.
It's one of those numbers that no matter what the number you're given is, it's too low, probably. Because I'm including all of the times that the CIA gave like $500 to a guy in a shoebox, and then he went and bought a sound system and didn't do anything. Yeah.
But yeah, here's the State Department memorandum, the decline and fall of Castro, secret memorandum that was declassified, but it's from April 6, 1960. Salient considerations of respecting the life of the present government in Cuba are: the majority of Cubans support Castro. The lowest estimate I've seen is 50%. There's no effective political opposition. Fidel Castro and other members of the Cuban government espouse or condone communist influence. Communist influence is pervading the government and the body politic at an amazingly fast rate. The only foreseeable means of alienating internal support is through disenchantment and disaffection based on economic dissatisfaction and hardship.
By the way, this is like exactly a year before the Bay of Pigs takes place.
Yeah.
And so, which means, by the way, that as this happens, so in 1960, like as the presidential campaign is happening, they are putting together the plans and organizing what will be the Bay of Pigs. Quite famously, Allen Dulles briefed both Nixon. Nixon was involved in it, but he briefed JFK as well. And then at a debate, JFK, knowing that Nixon couldn't talk about what was going on, like slammed Nixon for being soft on Cuba, which is a pretty clever move. But the whole this was part of like a whole escalatory program against Cuba that like began in 1960 and literally has not stopped after 65 years.
Unfucking believable shit.
Have sanctions ever worked anywhere? Well, what's worked? Like Vincent Bevins, the journalist, has made a really compelling. He made a really compelling argument in his Substack that I would highly recommend people to look up. If you Google the phrase "regime collapse," it'll come up. But like he makes this argument that like a lot of what these policies are designed to do and their effect is not about implementing a regime change. They're not about really anything other than trying to introduce as much pain as possible to eliminate the conditions of governance, period. And you could say that like by themselves, have they ever worked? I couldn't come up with an answer off the dome. But I do think that when you look at sanctions applied in concert with kinetic military action, as well as other kinds of diplomatic pressure or isolation, it's incredibly effective. They're very effective. And I think it's really like the question of like, do they work or not is like, well, they inflict the pain, they inflict the damage. So by that measure, they work. It's like, like, does the car get you from point A to point B?
And also, yes, it does. It's like it puts the countries in an impossible bind because like when you're under siege like conditions, and there is like internal instability that will come about as a direct consequence of like economic instability. Then the government's like, okay, well, people are fucking chirping. What do? We have to like arrest some people, And then it's like that repression snowballs into more and more discontent until like it happened in Iran, where America and Israel decide to just like drop the ball and realize that they can't really implement popular mobilization on the ground. So they just decide to directly start bombing the fucking country. But of course, in the case of Iran, which we're going to move into now, you know, if that country has hands, all of a sudden they're like, whoa, whoa, you're cheating.
Yeah,
You're
I'm
cheating.
sorry. It's not. We were allowed to put military bases in every country that borders you, but you're not allowed to hit them.
Yeah.
That was
So funny. It's such a funny way to fucking approach. And Donald Trump has basically openly revealed that too. Like they have literally openly revealed like it's illegal to strike back. Economically literate and principled neoliberals from Milton Friedman to Hillary Clinton have always argued against sanctions precisely on the grounds that they make impossible to credibly attribute Cuba's failure to socialism. It's the hacks who like this who won't admit it.
Jeremiah Johnson, that guy on Twitter, he's not. He's for those watching.
His entire purpose.
He's a billionaire flesh puppet. You don't need. You can just ignore him.
But it is interesting that aside from the Israeli agents, like the Hasbara merchants on the outrage factory, it is actually Third Way and the neoliberal think tanks that are my biggest ops.
Because they have, I think that's because centrist, like self-avowed centrist politics, not like people who self-identify as moderates and are trying to find middle paths, but like people who legitimately believe in a kind of like political fusionism where it's like we support gay marriage and we also support you know, you never having healthcare in your life, whatever. Like, you know, those kinds of people, the thing that they can actually most saliently define their, you know, like their identity right now, the thing that helps them do that the most is to do an opposition politics organized again, like on, you know, you know, in the Cold War era, this would have been against communism, but now it's against, you know, people who have these kinds of, you know, sympathetic left-wing politics and foreign policy or whatever, because they can't say, oh, well, I support like, you know, like all the, like the AI companies, for example, like these like vastly, insanely unpopular avatars for like everything wrong with American capitalism right now, et cetera, et cetera. And like you can't talk about that because that's actually really unpopular. So you have to go to the issues where people don't know a whole lot. Yeah, and that where your opponents, where your ops are currently engaged. So they're meeting you where you are.
But it's funny because like the issues that I advance, that I want to you know bring awareness to, unfortunately for them, are also deeply popular in the base. So then they find themselves in opposition to like a Free Palestine movement. And that, I think, further isolates them from average people. But I guess that's not really the point. But the point is to just like, you know, create some fuss and try to present me as like a toxic individual.
Well, but because they're not waging on the level of like trying to reach people. This is about like a kind of
raising this issue of my toxicity to politicians.
Exactly, elite level discourse where it's like, so a guy at Third Way and his junior staffer who probably wrote the piece can co-write something for the Wall Street Journal op-ed page. You know, nobody's going to give a shit about that. No general person. The point of that is that it influences like elite opinion, perhaps, and it'll create a stink. That said, the fact that it ran in the Wall Street Journal opinion section, which is like truly the intellectual level of a fucking townhall.com comment section, you know, it's to me at the very fucking least, it's like it just shows that they have no emotion, they have no sauce, they have no juice. Nobody cares what any of these people think about this. Yeah.
All right. Let's get to situation monitoring, which, you know, I've done very little of for the past couple of days because I've been in Cuba. But the war effort's going really well, Noah. I don't know if you're aware of this, but it's...
Victory's coming any day now.
Any day now. One of my favorite...
I've actually been really, you know, I've been really excited to do my part because I live in Manhattan and I don't have a car, but I'm excited to be here in Los Angeles where I have a rental car and I can do my part to support the war effort by paying for $7 a gallon gas.
War bonds. It's our version of war bonds.
Oh wait, Jerry Baker. Sorry. He's not just the Wall Street Journal editor at large. He's the former editor of the entire paper.
Yeah.
He's like not like a...
Iranian media says there was no direct or indirect contact with Trump and claims he withdrew after threatening to attack West Asia energy facilities. The unsettling reality is that with this president, Americans in wartime are in an unprecedented position of having to suspect that the enemy's version of events is more likely to be true than our own. We have become Baghdad Bob. He has to say that because we were always Baghdad Bob. I'm sorry. There's never been a moment where we're not backed up.
Sorry, you're telling me that the ex-editor of the paper who moderated presidential debates in 2016 for Fox Business News might not be letting on all that he knows about the failures of media?
Been this. The only difference is Trump is so vulgar and so incompetent that there is no liberal patina that even the previous formation was able to slap on, right? It's totally fucking ridiculous. It's totally, this is what I wanted to show.
Oh, this is all I love.
This is the best.
I read this aloud to myself.
This is the best sequence of events. Friday's press gaggle, barely exaggerated. At 12:03 p.m., President Trump told reporters he wanted a ceasefire with Iran. At 12:05, he declared victory. At 12:07, he announced he was sending Marines. At 12:08, he said no boots on the ground.
How do you do that in 60 seconds?
At 12:11, he said he did not want a ceasefire. At 12:16, he declared victory again. At 12:17, he asked for a ceasefire. At 12:23, he told NATO they were cowards. At 12:29, he said Iran was begging for a ceasefire. At 12:31, he said everything was perfect. At 12:36, he said $500 oil was a good thing. At 12:37, he demanded Iran open the Hormuz. At 12:39, he said Hormuz was never closed. At 12:41, he said the U.S. was not at war with Iran. At 12:42, he declared victory in Iran. There's no... What are we doing? There's no way.
We're did you hear the next thing though? We've had some developments since this. Where now it appears that we may jointly operate Hormuz.
Yeah.
Did you see the Dylan Saab tweet?
Sorry, you're wrong. Pentagon weighs deployment of air troops to Iran.
God.
It's like we
were so close.
If you blink, you will literally see a role reversal. And my favorite thing, because as you might know, dirty commie and all, I have this principled stance that money is more fake. This is the fakest money has ever been. Okay, there's no world where the stock market is associated with any fucking fundamentals whatsoever. We have never had money be so fake in our entire lives. Because while this guy is contradicting himself, sometimes in the same minute, sometimes in the same sentence, the stock market is leaning into whatever they want to hear, and they're going, "Oh no, it's great actually." Now all of a sudden, the markets are stabilizing.
Well, I do think it was really funny though that the market went back to taking a bit of a shit, and oil went back to increasing as soon as Iran said, "Hold up, hold a minute, we're not talking."
Yeah, look at this.
It's so good.
At 7:04 a.m. Eastern today, President Trump said the U.S. and Iran have had a productive discussion to end the Iran war. Okay, boom. At 7:10 a.m., S&P surged 240 points, adding $2 trillion to the market cap. 27 minutes later, Iran completely denied all of President Trump's claims and said there has been no contact with the U.S. At 8 a.m. Eastern, the S&P 500 had fallen 120 points, erasing $1 trillion in market cap. There is a $3 trillion swing market cap at 56 minutes just in the S&P 500.
Yeah, I love that. The S&P 500, famous for its volatility.
Yeah.
That's it's hard to convey just how, what you don't hear anybody say anymore?
What?
Nothing ever happens.
Yeah, that's true.
I think we gotta
eviscerated.
We are in something.
Bro,
and we're not out of it, and it's not ending anytime soon.
When Francis Fukuyama is running around being like, countries need to develop nuclear sovereignty pronto, it's fucking over, baby.
I do think that there is but this goes to something that you were getting at though about why it's these third way people, nobody listen. You got the fucking Jerry Baker at the Wall Street Journal saying we can't trust our president or whatever. It's just hard to convey how strange and surreal it is to have something this yes, this is what I was talking about. Which, by the way, look up somebody find the Iranian embassy in I think South Africa. They copied the tweet.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Trump tells reporters that the Strait of Hormuz may be jointly controlled by me and the Ayatollah. Oh, that's brilliant. That's fucking brilliant, dude. Oh my Lord, that's so good. Energy industry insider in Iran tells me the following, and it's stunning, says Shrita Parsi. Before the war, Iran produced just shy of 1.1 million barrels of oil per day and sold it at $65 per barrel minus $18 discount, i.e. $47. Today, it produces 1.5 million barrels per day and sells it at $110 with only $2 to $4 a discount. And this does not include petrochemical sales that not only have increased, but are now being sold as a larger set of customers compared to before the war. Moreover, Iran is receiving payments through new mechanisms that bypass the UAE, which were set up after the June war. In essence, and this is really important to understand, Trump and Israel's war has ended up delivering Iran de facto sanctions relief. And on top of that, they're now paying. They're making them pay tolls if they want to pass the fucking Strait of Hormuz.
Well, and they're the way that they're making those tolls work. So, like in the 1970s, one of the ways that America dealt with the oil shock in 74, in 73, 74, and then in 79, but especially in the earlier phase, was that America. We left the gold standard earlier in the decade, but the biggest one of the biggest, most unheralded parts of that was that we recycled petrodollars by selling all of these governments, crazy huge weapons. That was part of how we fixed all this. We used that geopolitical tumult and that circumstance to reweight the dollar and and help restore a stronger dollar by having these Arab governments spend and Iran at that time spend crazy amounts of money with us on F6 on fighter jets and whatever. Now, like Iran arguably is, trying to force a similar kind of thing because not only have they, clearly they're in the money, as Shrita Parsi tells it in some respect, but now they're also saying, no, the only way the oil goes is if you pay us in yuan.
Yes.
Meaning that they are trying to
destroy the petrodollar system.
Exactly. Granted, the petrodollar system is it's a bit of an antiquated way of looking at it just because it doesn't.
It's also one that I feel like they just kind of threw that out there for China.
It's the image. It's about how it looks.
Yeah, China doesn't even fucking want it. I don't think China is ready for being the domineering hegemonic.
They don't
power.
want it. They want to do nothing and win, and they will. But
this is the unironic do nothing win moment though, because China is always doing things right. I don't agree with the do nothing win principle when it comes to China, but this is absolutely a moment where they did nothing. They literally objectively did nothing.
And they will probably be part of the diplomatic resolution.
Yeah. Well, they have to be.
Yeah, I'm not really.
Who's going to maintain stability?
Right now, the crazy thing is that supposedly the talks that they're claiming have been happening are in Pakistan.
Yeah.
Which is also
Islamabad.
But it's okay, so that's just a rehash of the Oman thing
Which
where you're going to a third party.
I personally take offense to as a Turk because we are normally the table. The fact that they're going to Islamabad instead of Turkey is unbelievable. We are the table. We are at the table is really fucked up.
You're under the table right now.
Yeah, we're under the table currently. Literally, the Iranians lasered one of our helicopters, which is. There's two major military presence in Qatar, and it's America, obviously the biggest one, CENTCOM, and then Turkey. I don't know what the fuck they were doing, flying around their troops, and I believe Aselsan engineers in a helicopter. I don't know what the fuck was going on there, but yeah, they shot down a Turkish helicopter. We're no longer at the table. It frustrates me. Islam good, bro. Islamabad is Islamophobic. Yeah. Turkey's an intermediary. Okay, never mind. We're still at the Hakan Fidan. We're still at the table. Never mind. Confirmed. Turkish source tells Al Monitor the U.S. is asking for talks.
Okay, but this is awesome because now all the leaks are just, hey, look at all of our ideas for talks. We love talking. We love talking.
Yeah,
we love talking.
Dude,
we love talking. Do not mind all these troops that we're massing.
Yeah.
Do not mind that we've killed literally every person that we've talked to.
Yeah.
Don't mind it.
Iran don't fuck with Fidan. Yeah, no shit, dude. Look.
Duh.
Yeah, this is. Sorry, but Turkey is literally. A principled
second largest standing army in NATO. Come on.
Yeah, and also literally has its own sovereign needs, obviously, has its own regional goals, of course. And America sometimes lets them accomplish it, which regional goals basically just killing Kurds. That's for the most part, that's what the regional goals are. But But outside of that, there is like tensions boiling between Turkey and Israel, but it doesn't change the dynamic that like Turkey does actually play. Turkey does play a major role in making sure that the Israeli energy grid stays stable. I mean, the pipelines from Azerbaijan go through Turkey, and the Turkish ports are how they deliver the oil and gas to Israel. That's like 45% of Israel's entire energy grid. And there's never been a moment where Turkey has said, yeah, we're going to fucking shut this down. Okay? Turks used to deny this, by the way. Ironically enough, now they say, oh, what can we do? We don't have any power. But they used to literally deny it.
Well, and like it's like, I mean, there's like, obviously so much more about this than me, but to me, it has always struck me that like Turkey's policy is just a triangulation game. Like it's, like they know where their people are at on this issue. They know what the demands are of like their current set of geopolitical alliances and strategy. And then there's also like, whatever set of policies are good to preserve like the level of accumulation for the people that run the show. And so it's like always finding like what is like, like the 5-inch by 6-inch hole in which you can fit something that like meets all those needs.
Yeah. But I think the real test of like whether this is unsinkable aircraft carrier or Zog theory will be if Israel gets to wage war against Turkey and then like undermines the entire NATO allegiance altogether. Because like at that point it's like undeniable, right? Like it's fucking ridiculous that America would be like, yeah, you know what, this NATO stuff is too big.
I mean, NATO is. I mean, look, one of the. Okay, I'll throw this out there, so that I can because this is actually like what I'm about to say is like real live stream fail material, which is just that I do think that it's like NATO is coming under an enormous amount of pressure, and simply because the fight is now happening in Iran, I think people have kind of lost sight of a bit about some of what makes NATO feel very fragile at this moment. Like the geopolitical origin of NATO, right? Like the basis of it was an alliance to combat the Soviet Union and to prevent the spread of communism there. And it came together in the years after World War II, at the beginning of the Cold War, and we were almost a century on. And does the strategic rationale that was the basis for the origin of NATO still hold? And I'm posing a question that like was very heavily theorized and discussed in the 1990s in particular. George Kennan had some interesting stuff to say about it as somebody who was one of the ideological inspirations for NATO and a Cold War ideologue who then by the 90s is like, this thing may have run its course. Well, that's a thing.
Breaking, Anadolu Agence says,
oh, this is awesome.
U.S. delegation coming to Pakistan in a day or two for possible talks, but Iran still not ready due to mistrust. Pakistani foreign ministry sources tell Anadolu. Dude, imagine the pump fake. They go and they're not there.
I mean, the U.S. is doing that. That's what's happening. This is humiliating. So, please, Erdogan, come to Washington. We need a real government. We need a real government. We can't have these. We can't have these losers who show up to diplomacy meetings without knowing if the other people are even going, just because they know how fucked they are.
I think they should mock I think they should mock Witkoff and just be like, yeah, we're coming, and then just not show up. And they're because like, what are they gonna do? They're like talking about blowing up the energy grid in Iran. Okay, Iran has said that they're retaliating.
All right, we'll do it back.
They keep King Von posting on a daily fucking basis. They literally posted every single energy infrastructure that they will destroy in the entire fucking region. And obviously a lot of people think, oh, well, this will collapse the GCC and it will have global impacts that are insanely damaging, but maybe like the entire world will come together and like oppose Iran. But the reality of the matter is, because of the way in which global capitalism works, it creates a massive security flaw. It's a fragile ecosystem when you have a country that's willing to fucking not just like take the war back to the principal defenders, but directly to the fucking centers of profit, directly to the centers of capital. Those are American banks, right? Those are American refineries at the end of the day. Like, yeah, it's Saudi Aramco, but like who fucking put those things together? Who still benefits from it? These are still going to be American. These are still going to be American capital owners that are not benefiting from
And
their
also-
investments getting blown up.
And even if we don't directly own this stuff anymore, or even if we're not directly a part of it, like, I don't know, who pays for Saudi Arabia's, who supplies them with their military technology, who supplies all of these people, like essentially the rudiments of state making, let's call it, like all of the things that you need to do to be able to administer power, administer government in the 21st century. Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the UAE, none of those countries could do any of it were it not for the largesse of the United States, like coming, on the other side of the table. Like that is what the U.S. brings to the bargain.
Yeah. Also, massive explosion heard in Tehran, along with air defenses. Like they're still being fucking bombed.
Oh yeah, great.
But I do love personally that Donald Trump went from, oh, we're gonna blow everything up, to this.
Not war, not war, not war. Just peace, just peace, just peace.
No war!
Forever, forever. Peace forever. No crazy war. No crazy.
No crazy war. No guerra. He went in a matter of 2 to 3 weeks. He went from yes war to no war, no crazy war, just peace, peace forever. They should immediately release Maduro, by the way, which is really fucked up. But
Free my man.
yeah, free my man. High school walkout. Free Maduro walkout. 3 p.m. Netanyahu just spoke to Trump. Oh, wonderful, wonderful.
I just spoke to President Trump.
Here, read it.
I spoke earlier today with President Trump. He believes there is a chance to leverage the military achievements of the war to get all of the objectives of the war through an agreement. Such an agreement will safeguard our interests.
I think these guys don't. I think he's
They're all trying to find a way out, man. They're all trying. We're now getting
but they don't get it.
We're getting
They
the
don't get
leaks
it.
from the Mossad saying that the Mossad thought there was going to be an uprising. Like, oh no, this is cooked. They're done. They're trying to find the door.
They are so fucked. And the reality is, Iran, oh my God, because they killed all the fucking restraint guys. They killed all the restraint guys, so the rest are like, no, we have the fucking upper
have you
hand.
seen Jalali's posts? The more hardliner guy from their government who's still both alive and on Twitter, who has been doing some pretty good posts today that I've been seeing.
No, they've been doing they've been doing cringe posting. The IRGC guy was like, Donald Trump, you are fired. Robert Pape is cursed to see his work vindicated over and over again.
All right, he wasn't the first guy to point out that air power
escalation.
never wins. To be clear,
But but it's that and also the escalation ladder. He loves the he only posts the same thing, copy and paste every day. He's like, well, this is the escalation trap. Please read my book.
My book. I also look as somebody who has to hawk something. I'm never gonna knock somebody for that.
Yeah.
But I think that this is part of what's so goofy though now, where it's like what we're now witnessing, like what we are seeing right now. Like set Lebanon to the side for a moment. What we're seeing in Iran is like this insane, bizarre scramble. It's like the Israel and the U.S. are like, I don't. This for your audience is probably too old, but one of the best jackass. Jackass sketches is medicine ball dodgeball, and it's like fucking the U.S. and Israel are trying to find the door in a dark room where people are throwing medicine balls like dodgeballs. It's absurd.
The IRGC clip. Oh yeah, this was the clip.
Oh, hit me.
Trump, you are fired. You are familiar with this sentence. Thank you for your attention to this matter. The central headquarters of Khatam al-Anbiya.
You are fired.
Donald Trump, you are fired. You are familiar with this sentence. That's hilarious.
Donald
dude.
Trump's gonna be like, we need to put. We're gonna bury him under the jail. We're gonna bury him under the reactor.
I just wanted to be one of the 88 clerics. Why can't I have a say? I've studied the Quran. I know the literature. I know it. I'm Shia in my heart and soul.
I do think that there is also it's so difficult because we're now like a solid decade into like Trump life, and there have been so many cycles of discourses about his health, his state of mind.
Yeah.
How aware is he of what's going on? And I really do feel, not because I've seen like clips of Trump where he looks out of it or out of sorts, but just like, I don't think have we ever seen a policy, like, and this is like for Trump I'm talking about. For Donald Trump, have we ever seen something this crazy, this, discombobulated, this contradictory?
It's funny because, like, it's not even entirely his own fault. I mean, obviously, it mostly is his fault because he still very much has the capacity to make that phone call to be like, we're done here, right? It's over. And I don't know of how much of the leverage they have. I'm certain that, like, reading the tea leaves here and looking at the Iranian response, if they were to like cut Israel out of the equation and were to like withdraw, which America simply doesn't do, with the exception of like with the Ansar Allah movement and stuff. But if they were to do that, if they were to give Iran assurances, like I'm certain that Iran would eventually say, all right, fine, pay us reparations, or, by unfreezing some of the assets that you have frozen for years and years. It would be a massive blow to American confidence and stuff. But like, it would, in my opinion, it would probably salvage like the remains of like the American empire, at least for like another decade or two.
Had they gone in,
but if they go in gung ho, like if they continue to escalate and think that they could do boots on the ground military warfare with a country that has designed its entire defense around this exact scenario, with a topography that looks the way it does, like a fucking fortress on three sides with mountains, they're fucked. Like it's over. That's why they're quietly conceding. Well, not quietly, loudly conceding.
I mean, I do think that some of what's going on though is that, like, and this is one of those things where it's like the Trump sloppiness and the incompetence really can't be dismissed or underplayed, because I do think that this is what we're like everything you said, ordinarily, if you were to get into a situation like this, as a military leader, as a president, whatever, you have an idea of what your off ramps are. You have an idea of, if X doesn't work out, then we will do Y. Or we will find a way to, like, Israel's very good at that, by the way, because Israel has chosen very aggressive, very shocking, but fundamentally limited objectives as that it seeks to accomplish as part of its whole strategic vision. But like, they find ways out when things start to not, when the people start coming home in body bags, which is really the only metabolic thing that keeps Israel from getting deeper involved. But like, to me, this is where it's like, this is evidence of Trump had no plan to get out. And because there's no plan, he's in this like really it's a political trap. It's entirely a political trap. Because as you say, there's no reason he can't just, make the call and say we're done. It's that he has to come up with like a basis for political legitimacy to do that. And he's done so many different things, plus not having had the forethought. He doesn't have any way of accomplishing that. There is no political victory, even partial, that he can claim at this moment that we can yet see. And we're now entering week 3 or whatever the fuck of him trying to find simply that. I thought it was goofy. Can Iran give Trump a world peace award to end the war? I actually think that kind of logic is like where we are headed, because we're not going to see actual like things on the ground, or like a major treaty. I know that we are in week 4. I think that they had a week where they thought they could really win this thing, and we've been 3 weeks of like, oh fuck, of like, where do I go?
The reason why I brought this is a theory that is like maybe a little lib-brained of me, but like, I truly think Donald Trump doesn't believe in the competence of his own intelligence community and his own like generals. And time again, he is like listened to Vladimir Putin or even Benjamin Netanyahu in this instance. Like, he will just be like, his own generals will come up to him and be like, dude, we're going to run out of fucking batteries. We're going to run out of defense systems. Like, we don't have the procurement strategy to develop in a rush, just in time manufacturing system that we have, like develop in a rush, like all the fucking missiles that are necessary for keeping up this defense. And if you do this, it's going to be devastating. Dan Cain literally came out and leaked it to the press ahead of time. Like, it's one of the biggest blows of the confidence of the American military is when your top general literally is like, this fucking idiot's not listening to me. I have to go and tell every outlet I possibly can that this is going to be a spectacular failure, with the hopes that there will be some pressure from reasonable minds.
There is like one stratum of this, or like one like area of this that we haven't brought up, which is like part of how this thing works and gets sustained. And that's like, I would say it's a combination of like the Israel lobby and their fellow travelers. So I'm thinking of like FDD, and I'm thinking of AIPAC, and I'm thinking of all these other organizations.
They talked about their objectives. It's literally copy paste from the FDD.
Yep.
FDD is a cutout for the Israeli government, by the way. For those of you who don't know, Foundation for Defense of Democracy. What's the Hebrew name of it initially? I think it's like.
I mean, I know they had to change the name because originally it was a Hebrew word, but they like.
I think it was a Hebrew word for truth.
Emet?
Yes, it was Emet. So FDD in 2001, when it was first launched, was called Emet. Okay, the Hebrew word for truth, and they had to like restructure it and make it more American because it was like too Israeli coded. But it's never actually changed its design. Its purpose is literally to serve as Benjamin Netanyahu's own personal think tank in America, and yeah, it's unbelievable that the American government's official communique shows a direct copy paste from the Israeli, like the Israeli fucking mouthpiece in Washington D.C. Like, look,
I would also add
this level of infiltration is insane, dude.
I mean, and you know, it's like infiltration is to me an accurate description from even if this was like some 24-year-old who's working for the Trump administration was told like, oh, we need to have this page up and running, like go get the fact sheet out, like, and this is their choice was to just copy and paste this. That tells you something. I think the other thing, somebody else has been sharing this, about how Trump believes Israeli intelligence. Like one of the not so open or one of the not so like tight secrets of American foreign policy is that Israeli intelligence is garbage. Lawrence Wilkerson, the ex-Powell advisor, is like a very he's spoken very explicitly about this.
It didn't used to be.
Well, it's because it became, particularly since the Netanyahu era, like what it is it's intelligence at its worst for political purposes, meaning that it's intelligence that is made to support specific political objectives of the government. It's not like unvarnished political reporting. It's not sourcing. It's stuff that it's Iraq war stuff all over again.
Because the goal is not like in their minds like survival in the same way that like the American defense industry no longer operates for a specific military purpose or a specific military objective. There's so much defense bloat because it's a capitalist invention. So they don't give a fuck about like making the cheapest and the most resilient pieces of military equipment. The sophistication of it and the cost of it is no longer a consideration at all because it's just an unlimited slush fund, right? For all of the fucking shareholders that constantly drop further and further profits. And that's why you see the F-35, which is supposed to be this like this beacon of American military superiority, get fucking taken out by a K truck with a fucking built air defense system on top of it in the mountains of Iran, and it's a massive blow to American air superiority. And for by the way, anyone that can see it,
we're taking L's that we don't even know about yet. Like the fucking there's that ship that got hit that they're saying there was like a laundry fire. I think the Gerald Ford, and then there's never been all of a sudden, I don't know if you guys have known about this, but there's a lot of the F-15, which has had one of the most immaculate combat records in like 40-50 fucking years of service. And then all of a sudden, we've been losing F-15s. Oh yeah, and then there was that F-35 that went down. A plane that, by the way, is going to cost billions to replace.
$2 trillion in R&D that is supposed to be the peak of American ingenuity, right? Is now being combat tested in real time, and in a record pace has lost his air superiority against defenses. And people are coping so fucking hard that they're like, oh, this doesn't actually put a real dent in like American superiority.
By the way, what Maz Hussein is pointing out right now, by the way, here is really important because there was one opinion column in Al Jazeera a few days ago, last week, that was just getting passed around over and over. Like Ben Smith from Semaphore, a lot of people with, frankly, like a lot more sympathy than they should have for the Gulf countries or Gulf governments.
Well, they do sharing it. Out
there. Exactly. But they're like, oh, this is really interesting. And
I went to the Pearl of the Gulf. Okay. I feel bad for Qatar. Maybe Iran should stop. That's what I think. That's right.
Yeah, that easy.
Yeah, it was that easy for me.
So like there was this article in Al Jazeera, and it was all about how like it was the bear case for Iran. Essentially, it was saying that like, look, Iran is actually in a weak position. All of these launchers have been destroyed. How do we know they're destroyed? Because they're not launching missiles. And that was like the most salient factual claim in that piece. And it was like a very like, now we're seeing no, Iran's capacity hasn't been diminished at all.
Yeah. It's like, this is the thing
Or, I mean,
that
not
I
at
want.
all, but you know what I mean.
This is the thing that I want. Yeah, it's not been treated in the way that it's presented, right?
Exactly. That's my point.
And that's the thing that I want to ask people that like are constantly like reading the recycled cope machine from people who are like, American military superiority is awesome. We're fucking, our dicks are so hard. Like how do you cope with that reality that like a fucking 34-year-old dickhead that has no like insider information has been openly fucking saying that this is a spectacular boondoggle from day one? I have literally been able to pinpoint and call out, alongside many people in the OSINT side of things that aren't so hoorah about American military superiority. How do you make sense of that reality where people from the outside can have more sober assessment about America's capabilities and, more importantly, its limitations than these people that are on the inside that have been basically fucking telling themselves and anyone who will listen lies over and over and over again? There have been people, there were people initially that would come into my chat and be like, you're just coping. You're just fucking sad that your best friend, the Ayatollah, got fucking murked and you can't get that sweet IRGC money any longer. And I was like, dude, I'm just telling you what's going to happen tomorrow. And when it happens tomorrow, you're going to come up with a fucking new cope. And they've been doing that now for fucking 23 days. When will it end?
That's pretty good. DUI hires.
Yeah, DUI hires. Exactly.
I haven't heard that one before.
Like 23 fucking days, man. It's crazy. At some point, you got to wake up to the reality that like the Iranian missile barrages are not stopping. And unironically, the Israeli defenses are actually diminished in the process. And they can't fucking defend the country anymore. Okay.
I mean, this is to me like what this really reminds me of is the like what's happening now reminds me of like what a lot of people when Reagan got elected, what they thought he was going to get into, and then they were kind of pleasantly surprised that he just decided to do proxy wars. There's
by the way, yeah. Oh, sorry to stop you, but hype train incoming. Piker Broadcasting Service. Please subscribe for tomorrow's news today. Piker Broadcasting Service is sponsored by you, the people, for you, the people. Piker Broadcasting Service is sponsored by you, the people, for you, the people. Your subscriptions allow me to maintain my editorial independence. All right, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. They wanted like Reagan to be the one who would like, you know, like, or they didn't want it. They thought Reagan would be the one to do all this or whatever. And it ended up being like a 40-year head start, but the 40-year, you know, like lag, I guess. But to me, the thing that like is a part of what jumps out is that like all of this reminds me of like it's the same language, the same rhetoric, the same patterns of thought as all the people who after America got washed in Vietnam were like, let's fucking get out there, let's do it again. You know, let's you know, saddle the fuck back up. Because I just don't know how you look at something like this and be like, you know what, we'll fix this if we just throw a bunch of ground troops into the equation.
Yeah, U.S. Navy nuclear aircraft carrier USS Gerald Ford might be out of action for 14 months.
Bro, Jason Tatum wasn't even out that long.
It's fucked up.
Jason Tatum, like you see NBA players like every night like lose like tendons and they're back on the fucking court quicker than this.
Well, this $13 billion piece of expensive machinery is constantly in a. I don't know what it is. I don't know. Like, there's two working theories here, right? Obviously, one is that Iran was like peppering it somehow, and then the other one is like mutiny. Yeah, I think it could be mutiny. So
mutiny is in our Blowback season 5. Yeah, 5. Yeah, the one about Cambodia and Vietnam. I have a good interview with people who are part of like essentially like a race riot on a ship, the Kitty Hawk, and that was one of a number of incidents. And we mentioned this briefly in that season, but like. One of the reasons why there's a really great book by the author David Courtwright that also talks about this. Like essentially in 1972, during the period of time when Nixon finally is like really forced to like end the war, essentially, part of what's going on is all of these mutinies and riots on Navy ships, on aircraft carriers, the USS Constellation, the Kitty Hawk. And they're, these were very scandalous big events at the time that have been kind of, memory hold a bit. But part of what was so astonishing was that like troop readiness and morale was was one of the biggest reasons why the, military ended up, or the U.S. was forced to exit the Vietnam War. So the idea that
buddy fucking was like a commonplace practice.
I mean, you would read stories about like troops, who were in Cambodia who would frag their officers. Who were sending them to do pointless or stupid missions that they didn't agree with. I mean, granted, there was a draft, and a draft existing, like that's why we had an anti-war movement. We had an anti-war movement because we had a draft.
Like that's the funniest thing when people are like, "Well, we should bring back the
draft."
draft."
I'm sorry. Why aren't people doing anti-war politics so good? What we did in Vietnam.
The people that are in defense of this administration's actions, claiming that we should do a draft, are the funniest people to me, because you don't understand what you are fucking suggesting. The only way that the American war machine continues is when it constantly feeds self-selecting individuals who are volunteering, not knowing what they're going to get into in real, if we're being honest, they just don't fully comprehend. They just think like, oh, I'll just be on a ship for a little bit, and then, I'll get a comms degree, and hopefully I can get a fucking job and have my college paid for. But like, that is the system that has forced Americans or caused Americans to decouple entirely from foreign policy. If there was a draft initiated tomorrow, all of a sudden, it would become a very different reality. Every single 18 to 25-year-old would be losing their fucking minds. You would see a real anti-war movement.
Mild counterpoint.
Okay.
Gen Z, soon Gen Alpha, like generations of people whom we think of as like indoor kids.
Yeah.
They're on the computer a lot. I think a lot of them want to see the world. And we know that they're not going to be able to get good jobs that would allow them to travel. So I actually think, kind of almost like dialectically, they are the generation that if there is going to be a generation drafted to fight some psycho war, it would be like the iPad babies.
I think it's going to be
the first
hard.
iPad babies.
I disagree. I think it's going to be very hard to sell them on the idea that
they don't have to be sold. They don't have to consent. My point.
No, I know, but like I'm saying that they're not gonna fucking go and die for Israel. I don't think. But
no, I think that they're gonna. No, obviously, I think what's end up gonna happen. If there will never be a draft, it's not a viable option. It's political suicide in this country. But like the idea of committing ground troops in this moment, I think would have a very comparable effect. I think that if they were actually sending and preparing for like a meaningful ground presence with American troops that is, beyond being stationed at any of our bases or patrolling the seas or whatever in this moment, then like you would quickly start to see some 1970s style shit, even though we don't have a draft, because that's how unpopular this bullshit is.
Yeah. I think, I don't know if they would frag their officers, but I think you'll see, minor sabotage in the way that you're seeing currently. Like all of a sudden the toilets don't flush, and then they find out that there's like just t-shirts being dumped into the bathrooms. Who the fuck puts a t-shirt in the toilet? I mean, I know some of these guys are fucking stupid, but that made me think like this got to be deliberate.
Well, there's now, I think one of the things that we're starting to see, because there really are not many press institutions that have like ties with like the military. Meaning that like there aren't a ton of reporters who write for huge general audiences and who are also like, really plugged into what the most, creative minds and free thinking individuals, let's say, with those people in either the officer corps or among the general infantry. And that's not because like reporters today like love war that much more. It's just because of like the military's gotten that much better at keeping its personnel away from the press, and the press has been conditioned to not actually ask these kinds of questions. So I think that like the extent to which like we are seeing this sort of dissension among the troops, it's just not communicated publicly, and they can hide a lot of it. They're hiding a lot of it really successfully, I have to imagine.
Yeah. If you buy what CENTCOM is selling, this is the most accident-prone the U.S. military has been in its entire history. The F-15 entered service 60 years ago and has never been down during a war. Now 5 of them have been down by malfunction and friendly fire in 2 weeks. On March 5th, the IDF claimed to have destroyed 300 Iranian missile launchers. So over the next 2+ weeks of fighting, they only destroyed or disabled 30 launchers. None of it makes sense, especially because they were leaning too hard into either plugging some holes, which they probably successfully did, right? Like the entry points into where these tunnel systems are. And that caused a momentary pause in the volleys that were being launched. Or Iran was actually, moving in a different direction and trying to make sure that this was a war of attrition and they could continue doing this for as long as possible. And that's why they were taking pot shots with the cluster munitions that they keep opening up on top of the Israeli airspace, because you only, as I kept repeatedly explaining, you only do that when your goal is to just like frustrate Israeli society. You're not doing that for any sort of like specific military purpose beyond, pissing off Israeli society, crippling the Israeli economy, forcing them into bomb shelters, because those are not interceptable missiles.
This goes to an argument also that Dylan Saba has put forward. He wrote for Jewish Currents in 2023 that I think is still one of the most powerful interventions I've ever read on anything related to these issues, which was about how Iron Dome is an offensive weapon. And the idea is that Israel's defensive capabilities have been so aggressively beefed up so as to inoculate Israelis from what in any other context would be viewed as like the reasonable costs incurred for fighting a regional war.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
There is now, and I think in this situation, Iran has finally figured out that we have taken, their leaders have arrived at the decision, forced really, that there's no more respecting that. You have to flood the zone and test the limits of this system. And they've tested it, and they found that actually, Israeli leaders are now having to prepare their a family of mine has heard this as well. Israeli leaders are trying to prime the population for the idea that they may not have to, because all of the Israelis running to the shelter and stuff before, like when Hezbollah would send a rocket, or when Islamic Jihad or Hamas would send a rocket from Gaza and it would land in a field in Beersheba. I mean, you were talking about almost what was for Israeli leaders, as they saw it, the perfect level of suffering that they could experience, because it reminded the population of the danger, but it was not enough to actually destroy and disrupt their quality of life over the course of year, 2 years, whatever. And having lived in Beersheba, having lived in the south in the Israeli South myself, and at a time when that was the case, it was very obvious that was the function.
Yeah, that's why when you interview regular folks, ordinary Israeli society, they just have a totally insane attitude about waging war with Iran, because from their perspective, there's no cost. There's some costs, there's minor nuisances, and I suspect that might change eventually, but I don't know, because part of me also thinks that just as we saw with October 7th, they're fucking insane.
They're insane, but they have there's a limit, not a limit to how crazy they are, but insanity can be checked by reality and certain, how crazy are you willing to be when your bank account is zero, that kind of, or when it goes to zero and you can't feed yourself. There's a certain kind of degree to, there's a certain element of this to me where part of what we still have not seen yet is the real stress tests applied, not just to Israelis, everyday Israelis and their everyday happiness and their joy, with bombs and missiles falling on them. It's instead about the question of can the Israeli society, can the Israeli polity survive intact in any recognizable form were this war to continue and their economy were to become devastated? Because Israel is not Iran. Israel is a tiny country, and it has a lot of
tiny country
and
size of New Jersey.
Meaning, though, what happens when a lot of those people who have dual citizenship in other countries and have been for the past number of years, even before October, this is a story I've told many times. A very, very influential and well-known Israeli journalist reached out to me. This is well before October 7th, because I had said, on Twitter, I said something I had informally heard that there were many people who had been, who were leaving Israel because prior to October 7th, the radical government was making a bunch of Israeli libs start to feel, nervous and sketchy. And so if you had a German passport, an American passport, people were starting to move assets. And I'd said, I threw some cold water on that. I was like, I haven't seen the numbers. I haven't seen the statistics. And then this guy out of nowhere, somebody who I don't have a connection to, saw my comment. It was just like, I just want to let you know, I think you're wrong. And that was prior to October 7th. I would be fascinated if, I would be so curious how, if the conditions in Israel were actually made that much more damaging, if they were that much more destructive to the average Israeli life, what might happen for all of the people who are in Israel who don't necessarily want to stay there. And I think that's where, again, like we've really not seen, and what I'm describing may be a situation that just like is not really plausible, because Israel would move so aggressively to prevent any circumstance like that from happening in real time. But I think that what I'm really trying to point out is that we've not even seen Israel get tested to that point, and what Iran has been doing in terms of how it is stretching the limits of Israeli defenses is suggesting that, well, maybe we are going to see if that can happen. Maybe we're going to see if that possibility can be breached.
Yeah. Now let's look at another exit ramp for the world's least loyal man, who has always thrown everybody else under the bus. Perhaps this could be a first inclination of who might be in the crosshairs. Let's take a look.
I called Pete, I called General Kane, I called a lot of our great people. We have great people, and I said, let's talk. We got a problem in the Middle East. We have a country known as Iran that for 47 years has been just a purveyor of terror, and they're very close to having a nuclear weapon. We can keep going and get that 50,000 up to 55 and 60 is no end. Or we can take a stop and make a little journey into the Middle East and eliminate a big problem. And Pete, I think you were the first one to speak up. And you said, let's do it, because you can't let them have a nuclear weapon. So we are now having really good discussions. They started last...
I don't know. I don't know if he'll throw Pete under the bus here. It doesn't seem like it.
Yeah, that sounds like he's giving Pete a pat on the head, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
Because it's like, and I'm sure, Pete has got a nice heart on having gotten that pat on the head.
Yeah. Iran's main demand is communicated to the mediators. If Trump fires Hexit, all bets are off. Moin Rabbani is joking there.
Yeah, it's clear.
Yeah. Breaking. The Speaker of Iran's parliament, who some claim has been negotiating with the U.S., says no negotiations have taken place, and the President Trump is claiming otherwise to manipulate the markets. It is crazy that, because it's no longer a non-state actor in the same way that, we very quickly did away with the Iraqi government, right? In the immediate invasion, and we were fighting against a not like a fully fleshed out state in the Taliban, in Al Qaeda in Afghanistan, but Iran is a state actor. It's a sovereign state. So you can't, especially with social media, you can't really undermine their position as much as you could, dominate the airwaves when you're talking about Israel versus Hamas. Talking about Israel versus Hezbollah. You have dudes with 8 PhDs on fucking, the interpretation of Quran from a Western capitalist framework, who are just coming out and posting on social media and also doing interviews in English with American news outlets. All of a sudden, I think that plays a major role in, it delivers a major blow to whatever the American goals of propaganda are, right? Because then mainstream media will cover the Iran.
There's another thing though, which is that it's not just about that Iran's a state and that Hamas is like a political organization with limited autonomy, whatever. It's that Iran also has the world economy by the nuts. Yeah. That they can do things that force people to take them seriously. Yeah. And it's just literally not been until this wave of this conflict that all of a sudden the West realized it. Because Iran had chosen not to go this far. They made the Iranian government, for whatever reason, much to the criticism of people much to the criticism of Western leftists, for example, they chose not to take it to this level until this most.
It was
recent.
Undeniable that it was until
Trump said we're coming to kill all of you.
I think I think this was Yahya Sinwar's calculation. It's just that both Hassan Nasrallah and Khamenei were far more restrained than he thought they would be. That's what I think.
Meaning, like in the prior conflicts, meaning that he
Yes.
thought it would come to this earlier.
I think that the purpose of the Al-Aqsa flood was to trigger was to trigger an Iranian retaliation of this sort.
I think it's plausible. I think one of the things though is that like it's there's always this kind of, and this is like also what Israel's deal was, is that they're always like testing the limits of what they think they can get away with. Because I also think in some sense what you're describing is that like yes, they wanted to provoke some kind of response, but now we're in a dog getting the car situation. And like, I think that they actually knew all along that they didn't want that smoke. What they wanted is what they said that they wanted, which is that they wanted the Iranian people to rise up. Like, I also do believe that on some level, like these guys have been believing their own bullshit about the closeness of, put it this way. You were just in Cuba. You saw what life was like in Cuba. For 60 years, every American president, save for Obama, has been told by their advisors, we're this close. You're going to be the president who's going to get to see the Castro regime fall. You know, it's the same thing with Iran. And I think that they ultimately believed their bullshit too much, even if they weren't believing it coming out of the Pahlavi's mouth. Like they believed it on this, like deeper level because they literally hadn't been presented with like a counter fact at any point. And until now.
Yeah, I mean, Trump, I think other presidents have, not saying much, but even including Biden, like have at least like demonstrated some level of restraint. Because I believe that Israel behind closed doors was always telling them the same fucking lie. But at least they were like competent enough to listen to their generals and their analysts and their own intelligence assessment to be like, no, we're not fucking doing that. You're out of your goddamn mind. It's too much of a risk, right? Until Trump. I think Trump demonstrated in Trump 1 and also in Trump 2, as we're seeing now, that he was the guy who was going to be like, yeah, no, you guys, your intelligence is great. I love what you did with the beepers, that type of shit.
Yeah.
Running off of like the highs that he got from the Venezuela operation, which was remarkably competent in comparison to what we're seeing in Iran right now, right? He thought this would be swift. I think he believed
the Maduro thing really got to his head.
Yeah, no, I think he genuinely thought, oh, decapitation, boom, 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 because I know he does not want to put boots on the ground.
No,
he has never, like, he might inevitably lean in that direction because he's like he's not going to back away, right?
This one I don't know about, because I also don't think that like you leak that you're considering troops, or you don't allow it to get out that you're considering ground troops, because it's in this current moment. The Iranians will read that as a sign of weakness because they're like, bring that on. If that's the level you're going to, bring it on. And politically, domestically, it's insanely unpopular. So if it doesn't present to Iran as or the world as a show of strength, and it drives the American public crazy, then why are you doing it? And that's where I think that like I do hold some measure of judgment on whether or not Trump is actually like opposed to ground troops. We know that he said at different points like Iraq, it was a mistake. I'm never gonna no new wars. But like he's a master liar.
Yeah, but think about it. Like he didn't do that in Venezuela. He amassed a big enough force to potentially draw Venezuela or go into a much larger conflict in Venezuela. Like you don't amass that level of naval forces if your goal is not to like eventually take it. I mean, if you're not willing to present that as a threat, while simultaneously he has always done crazy shit, but he has also backed away at times.
I don't disagree, but Venezuela worked also though, because like you saw the Wall Street Journal article about the CIA guy.
Oh yeah,
who worked for Chevron.
Yeah.
Like Venezuela is different from every other country that we've talked to because American multinationals have had a major like presence in Venezuela for like within the last 20 years. I mean, there are people who are CIA affiliated who worked with Chavez to get oil out of Venezuela into the world market. You know, it's not like meaning that there were connections. There were, you know, they had, I think they had a more realistic portrait of what the situation was in Venezuela and how they could exploit it. It doesn't seem, you know, to me, it just seems like they had the one radical plan that actually had a chance of working because of, you know, the way they did it out and the legwork they did. And Trump's lesson from that was, oh, well, I could just do whatever I want now because we did whatever I wanted here, even though that wasn't what they did. They did a pretty specific thing with some limits, and that's not this.
Yeah. All right, let's hear what Scale's new reporting looks like. Senior Iranian official tells Drop Site News, Jeremy Scale and Mortaza Hussein, there aren't any negotiations taking place. The Iranian side has simply communicated its conditions to the U.S. And even that has been done indirectly, adding that the U.S. messages have also only been passed through intermediary countries.
Debated how to even deal with this, and they literally ghosted Steve Witkoff. They did not respond to him. When we reported that last week, the White House went nuts. They denounced Drop Site News, accusing us of engaging.
Yeah, they said Drop Site News is a terrorist outlet.
In America Last behavior, said we were abhorrent, and then they went and they spun a story to Axios saying that it was actually the Iranians that had been begging President Trump to speak. And so, you know, this kind of played out over the past few days. And what Iranian sources were telling me, Daniel, is that through a series of intermediary countries, including Turkey, Pakistan, Egypt, and also some Gulf countries, there have been a series of messages passed on to the Iranians by the United States where, according to Iranian officials, these third-party intermediaries have said that the U.S. wants to wrap up this war. And that happens while publicly Trump is saying, we're going to bomb Iran's electrical and power infrastructure, which, by the way, would be a war crime if they did that in a sweeping manner. Iran then said, hey, let us tell you what we can do. We can hit not only in Israel, but we can hit in all throughout the Gulf. And this would cause just like catastrophic shock to the global economy, which we can talk about later. But the most breaking stuff I have for you is that Trump today posts on Truth Social that there's been this breakthrough, that he's pausing his threat to bomb the Iranian electrical grid and other energy infrastructure because there have been these talks going on between the United States and Iran. And Trump implies that he has some secret squirrel that he's talking to in Iran, and he doesn't want to name who it is because he doesn't want that person to be killed. It's unclear, does he mean by Israel or by the Iranians, you know? But what I'm told is that there have been no negotiations, direct negotiations with the United States, and that what the Iranian officials are telling me is that every time a third country comes to Iran and they say the United States wants to talk, Iran says, let us explain to you our conditions. And in short, what the Iranians are saying is that they will not agree to the kind of ceasefire that took place last June after the so-called 12-day war, because the Iranians view that as having been a gimmick to buy the United States and Israel time to rearm, to reposition, and then come back in with this full-blown war that they launched on February 28th. So they're saying they won't go for just a ceasefire that doesn't have conditions attached to it. They also want any cessation of the war not only to apply to Iran, but to apply to two other fronts of battle, as the Iranians see it, Iraq as well as Lebanon, where the Israelis are increasingly engaged in ground operations.
Iraq has also been a spectacular failure that's like not getting a lot of attention in this media cycle because there's so much devastation taking place everywhere. But they had to literally do a tactical retreat, a ceasefire with the Iraqi ground forces, the Shia forces in Iraq, to literally withdraw their troops. Did you see that part?
Yep. And well, it's, I mean, part of
like
what's
Iraq has been trying to democratically force the American troops to leave for years now.
And Iraq has like been this, you know, it's like essentially since the end of the Iraq war, because Iraq is this kind of like desiccated country, it's been a place where a lot of different militia groups and a lot of other like non-state political and military forces, you know, drive events on the ground. And, you know, the U.S. viewed it as essentially like it went from being its own place and its own war to then becoming like a kind of like soft battle, proxy battleground against Iran. And now, I mean, we'll see. I haven't read anything in depth about like the total, how Washington takes the total situation.
U.S. forces are now limited to the Kurdistan region, according to the Iraqi resistance, and they moved many of their troops into Jordan, I think. So this is devastating for again American military superiority, American might, American force projection capabilities. Like it's unbelievable. Things are stable now that the Americans left. We only had like 3 hours per day. American and NATO forces asked the Iraqi government for a temporary 24-hour ceasefire with the Iraqi resistance factions to facilitate their withdrawal from Victory Base in Baghdad, according to spokesperson for Saraya Awliya Al-Dam Abu Mahdi Al-Jafari. Al-Jafari said that most resistance factions that received the Iraqi government's request agreed to the truce on the condition that popular mobilization sites from the holy city of Samarra to Karbala would not be targeted. But if you return to sin, we will return to punishment. Beast mode.
That is pretty hard.
Beast mode. By the way, this has reverberations across the entire world. The reason why I say this is because the American military presence as a force projection capability is everywhere all at once, right? All of a sudden, this changes the calculation. All of a sudden, this changes the calculation in the Philippines, for example. This changes the calculation of like how well America could safeguard the bulwark against communism in South Korea, right? This changes the domestic considerations in South Korea for the South Korean government. All of a sudden, they're more willing to bargain as equal partners with the DPRK. If the Filipino government is also smart enough to recognize that reality, they have a very different opinion about getting into a bilateral security commitment with China in the South China Sea. They're the only country there's a holdout in the Asian cooperative structure that has refused to leftist cope Lamau. Oh my God. American troops are shitting in their fucking diapers. NATO also evacuated. Wait, what? Leftist cope Lamau? It's weird that I can't tell if you're like making a joke or if you're being serious. But like, as I was saying, the Philippines are the only country in the Asian system that has not engaged with China. Okay, they're the only country in that system that is a holdout. Right? What do? What do they continue? Do they have a real belief that America will defend them if it's no longer Iran, but now we're talking about China? It's just not going to work.
Very heavy bombing. Hezbollah, which Israel had said was wiped out, has been launching dozens upon dozens of rockets every single day into Israel. So they want those two countries also to be party to this ceasefire deal. They're also saying that they want reparations paid by the United States, and they want Israel to pay, but they don't want Israel to pay directly. They want that to happen through the United States because they don't want to take anything directly from Israel. But the other thing, and this is, I think very relevant, and many people, I know you've made this point before, and I've heard other smart analysts make it, that because of the way the United States and Israel have lied about the negotiations, have used it as a veneer or a cover to then wage these wars, the Iranian position has hardened. And what Iran is saying now is that there will be no discussion on its ballistic missile program, that if there is a ceasefire, Iran is going to move rapidly to continue its ballistic missile program, recognizing that it's its only deterrent against the United States and against Israel. They're also saying, and they wouldn't go into more detail on this, that they're in the process of developing a new doctrine on the nuclear question. They didn't say, oh, we're going to go and we want to enrich uranium to make nuclear weapons. But what they're saying to me is that that because of the U.S. and Israel targeting their nuclear infrastructure, because they blew up the negotiations where the Iranians had put terms on the table that went beyond the Obama-era deal, they're saying now that they're having discussions about developing a new nuclear doctrine, potentially in partnership with Russia and China.
Well,
more concrete decolonization accomplished by Iran and its allies in 3 weeks than most post-colonial studies academics have managed
Well,
to
yeah,
afford.
I'm sorry that UC Santa Cruz professors don't carry guns, but
that's a ridiculous comparison.
But but it is like fair to say that Iran is,
and not just there.
Iran is doing something like that.
Yeah, it's not just there; it's Sudan as well. Like the disruption.
Oh
The disruption of the United Arab Emirates has delivered a devastating blow to the rapid support forces and their activities in Sudan, where the Sudanese population have been able to successfully rise up and actually push out the RSF from all of these towns that they fucking genocided and took over. It's crazy because now you have the UAE is way too focused on defending the United Arab Emirates, obviously. It's crazy.
I mean, it is like one of the things I don't know how it'll result, because right before all this happened, the UAE and Saudi were like experiencing quite a rift, like a split over what was going on in Yemen and over the fact that Saudi wasn't so pleased with what the Emirates had been cooking up in Africa. I mean, I wonder what'll happen assuming that the Gulf kingdoms don't all fall into sand in the next few years. I am curious to see if those sort of deeper tensions between them resume.
Anti-imperialist theocracy is certainly a surprise. No,
it's
not even remotely a surprise. You want to know why it's not even remotely a surprise? Because those are the only forces that have successfully maintained sovereignty at this point. Because America, when it was fighting the Cold War, very successfully destroyed all of the atheist, socialist, Soviet adjacent countries. They did it. Iran was able to hold out because, as I've explained over and over again, in the Iranian Revolution, basically after decades of Western intervention, the forces that were the most Islamist were seen as the most anti-Western forces. They garnered tremendous legitimacy and were able to, lean into their popular base, which they do have objectively, okay, by presenting themselves as the uncorruptible Islamist forces that were not corruptible by Western intervention, Western interference.
Also, anti-imperialism is like a practice. Like the people in Iran could their theology could revolve around worshiping The Simpsons season 3.
Yeah.
And it would have no relationship to whether or not their actions are imperialist or anti-imperialist or not. It's about the position that Iran as a country occupies in the world system, the position that it occupies relative to the United States, and how it acts corresponding to resist that, how it acts to change that position is what will determine, the valence of anti-imperialist or not, which is, is a useful thing to keep in mind when considering why it is that so many people who are on the right side of issues these days do not necessarily resemble or come from the explicit political tradition that you yourself might.
I just don't understand how these two dynamics are going to play out. How do they think this is sustainable? I know that there's a lot of wish casting in the stock market where they're like, oh, he said the right words, now we're stable again, right? The market moves in that way where it's almost like it's an unspoken secret that as long as they get anything out of Trump that sounds remotely positive, they'll lean into that heavily because you have to constantly have a bull market. But it's totally fake. At some point, the bubble's going to burst.
I mean, I think some of it is that the Financial Times had a passage that everybody was sharing, it was passing around recently, that was sort of teasing out what the chain of effects could be. So it could be that it's if you end up if there's something that jeopardizes the amount of capital that can be pushed into AI investment, then all of a sudden those companies that are all investing in AI are going to like be in a race to be the survivor and one of the few companies that can take it. And so we'll see that bubble deflate some. And if that bubble deflates some and the values of those companies go down, then people, you know, the thought is that there's a bunch of correlated investments and assets have. I mean, the price of Bitcoin has more or less correlated with the price of Nvidia stock, I think. So the idea is that like if the AI crash happens, that'll end up taking crypto down with it. And if crypto, you know, it's and then you can imagine like how it all plays out in that way. It's just not like I'm with you, man. I have no idea how you do a war like this and then keep all of that going.
This is the segment. The FT now reporting that even without the energy shocks, there's a pretty good chance that the closure of Hormuz will pop the AI bubble that will lead to a stock market crash. The longer the Strait of Hormuz remains closed, the deeper the fall will be. 1/5 of the world's oil and LNG shipped through the waterway. If the conflict lingers, trip prices will steepen as manufacturers ration and compete for tighter supplies. Eventually, production could seize up. In the U.S., elevated energy costs would make present and future data centers less viable. One thing that is clear to me from looking at the events, there is always a chain reaction, and that's because we have, through American military dominance, through American imperialism, designed a global system that is actually infinitely more fragile than we thought it was. When you don't have to do a 9/11 or strike directly at the heart of empire to be able to make the empire suffer, because the empire is everywhere. And when the empire is everywhere, when capitalism is everywhere, you can actually strike the profit centers that are, you know, closest to you in your immediate vicinity. And when that happens, all of a sudden, everybody's screaming. The markets are screaming. This to me is the greatest indication that like the previous way of waging war is totally gone.
The one thing I will say is that like in this chain, like this looks like a very neat linear chain of events, right? But like there's a reason that like they have to qualify it with stuff like could, and that's not just because obviously like they're responsible journalists. They're not making predictions that you can't, you know, they're not writing checks they can't cash. But I do think that, for example, the question about elevated energy costs, like when that passage was getting passed around, I saw some people note that there's not necessarily a way to, you know, we don't know what energy costs are necessarily going to do in the U.S. because also the U.S. paradoxically, as a specific country, is partly one of the beneficiaries of this war because of the demand for, because we are a fossil fuel exporter and people need fossil fuels.
And on top of that, and I brought this up in the beginning, I'm not the biggest, like, I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm the biggest understander of how like heavy crude versus, you know, that sweet light shale works, right? Obviously, that's what we have through fracking. But we now sit on top of the world's largest heavy crude supply. And the thing is, even if we were to build the refineries up to become like almost one of the largest exporters around the planet of oil in general, I think that is like a part of that calculation, because previously, as long as the Gulf states were intact, it would disrupt the profitability of the American exporters if we just started refining heavy crude from Venezuela. The price of the barrel will go down too much, and then the smaller oil businesses in Texas and places like that would actually collapse.
Correct.
Now, however, with the price going up, there's a massive need for it. Now, do we actually reroute all of the infrastructure to come to the United States of America, and we become the sole exporter to China and all the Asian markets? Because you know, we have LNG, we now have like massive amounts of supply that we can what do you call it? We now have massive amounts of supply that would create stability. That would create stability in the energy markets as long as they're rerouted from the United States of America. This creates a tremendous upper hand for the United States of America against China. This creates leverage because China can no longer, if the Gulf blows up, if they escalate so much that Iran just says, fuck it, they blow up the entire Gulf, okay? And it's no longer workable for like the next decade, okay? all of a sudden China has to rely on oil from Russia more and more, and also the United States of America.
Correct.
And then you now can go toe to toe with the Chinese export controls. If China ever turns back and says, we're no longer giving you any rare earth minerals, then America can say, we are no longer allowing you to get oil from us.
I think one other thing that like is a part of this is that there is like there's been a lot of people I know who've wondered if like that was perhaps the point, that if like the actual goal of all of this conflict was to essentially reassert the U.S. monopoly on the distribution of oil, which arguably was like one of the great strategic advantages that it possessed for its, side of its share of the globe during the global Cold War. I don't know. This is where we're in the territory of like, this is just pure speculation. I did want to respond, though, to clarify something I said, because I was seeing a bunch of this in chat. When I was talking about the crypto stuff correlated with AI, my point was not that like AI is dependent on crypto or draws a bunch of revenue from it. It was about the correlation of investment, that lots and lots of people who have built wealth in the last few years from investments in crypto also have made money from playing in the stock market as well. And so part of what I was just trying to illustrate is not that I think that stuff is like, oh, it's the most vital piece of the economy ever, but it's just to illustrate how far reaching this stuff can be and how exactly economic calamity could pick up steam pretty quickly. That was all.
No, that's not correct. BRICS means China gets his oil and gas from Iran.
I don't know. Where's Iran?
I just said if the Gulf implodes.
It's in the Gulf, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
When there is no longer any fucking oil refiners in the Gulf. We're talking about like the nuclear option for global energy, but there is obviously no like clear cut manufacturing process where like the refinement process is like built up to speed to now pick up like the need, the additional demand that's out there with no supply. I don't know if America can rebuild its refinery processes on oil fast enough, and I don't even know what the logistics would look like. I don't know if this is like feasible. I'm just saying this is the only like materialist interpretation I can make sense of in these otherwise senseless events. This is complete nonsense, by the way. It requires you to believe that there's a huge amount of unsold Iranian oil, 140 million barrels, according to Besant, just sitting in tankers at sea waiting for buyers. Almost by definition, when the oil's in a tanker, it's because it already has a buyer. Oil in a tanker in the shipping part of the process, it'd be absurd to ship something without a buyer. All the more given how expensive a tanker voyage is these days. Also, the very notion that Iran would be selling oil when it couldn't access the money defies logic. Why on earth would they do that? They've been selling oil almost exclusively to China precisely because China is one of the very few countries both willing and able to pay them, despite the U.S. banking sanctions. And therein also lies Besant's key contradiction. It makes zero sense to lift sanctions on Iranian oil and at the same time have banking sanctions remain in place. It means that you can freely buy the oil but not pay for it, so it's still an impossible transaction. This, by the way, was confirmed by Iran's oil ministry, who said that Besant's statements on the subject were a psychological game by the U.S. Treasury Department aimed solely at ingraining hope into buyers and controlling market psychology, when the reality is that Iran currently has virtually no oil in tankers at sea and no surplus to supply the international markets. This is after Scott Bessant said that he's jujitsuing the Iranians. The decision to lift the sanctions is actually good.
Scott should go back to decorating homes with his husband.
Multiple countries are now actively working to mediate a deal between the U.S. and Iran as impacts of the war reverberate across the world, 5 sources told us.
Oh my God, that's sorry. Now we're getting into the territory of just like, it's just about like part of what annoys me, at least with this like framing. I'm sure that these reporters are doing they're doing their job, but it's just like, is it like that countries are trying to do this? Is it that countries like being in the press as being associated with moves toward diplomacy? Or is it, as Jeremy Scahill put it in a way that I think is way more convincing, the U.S. is using every country in the fucking Rolodex that it can think of to try and communicate messages to Iran? And they're doing that, by the way, as we saw with that other report, by they're showing up to Pakistan to talk, to do diplomacy without even knowing whether the Iranians are going to be there.
Yeah, no. It's it also goes along with like last week's reporting on Marco Rubio's ambition to try to get like to muster diplomatic pressure against Iran, knowing full well that like Iran does want to have continued conversations with countries in Europe, right? and they think that if France and Germany and the UK are a part of the coalition forces, all of a sudden there's like much more international pressure against Iran, and they think they can like cause them to bend to their will. Ironically enough, Europe, in spite of their vassalized attitude, has shown some has demonstrated some restraint in abiding by American principles. And even if they were to lean into pressure against Iran, it doesn't really amount to much as long as Iran continues to control the Strait of Hormuz.
Ago, he has now decided to, quote, postpone any and all military strikes on Iranian power plants.
I mean, this is a massive withdrawal, I think.
This, of course, comes after the president had issued
and I don't even know if it's
ultimatum.
real, but it's just like even the admission is just like openly demonstrating that they recognize that things are going really bad.
By tonight. Or he warned that they would be risking strikes on their power plants. CNN's Kevin Liptak is at the White House this morning. So the president's message this morning is the window is now a little bit wider in terms of that deadline. What else in terms of these talks, Kevin?
Yeah, and that I think is what is most extraordinary about this post that we've gotten from the president. Until now, we did not understand that the U.S. and Iran were speaking at all over the course of this now 3-week-long conflict. Now the president says that these conversations are underway. And so you can start to see and start to envision how potentially there is a diplomatic route to de-escalation that we did not know of until, 10 minutes ago before the president was posting this. And I'll read you a little bit of what he said. He said he's pleased to report that the United States, the country of Iran, have had over the last 2 days very good and productive conversations regarding a complete and total resolution of our hostilities in the Middle East. The president goes on to say,
you know what I think? I think Trump is just like trying to delay the market pain to the best of his ability until he just goes and commits the troops. On the one hand, I think in his sober moments, he realizes that the situation is looking bad. So he's trying to like feed as much positive information that the markets want to hear. On the other hand, he keeps mounting more and more troops. He keeps like sending more Marine expeditionary units and shit like that. Just wait until Friday. No, there's a couple more weeks. No. I'm saying like, he might strike Iran. He probably will strike Iran again on Friday after market close, right? He is so clearly operating. He is the most like markets focused president of all time. He's very clearly operating with that in mind. But what I'm saying is overall in the negotiations process, especially because Iran is not even remotely interested in coming to the table with a cessation of hostilities when they hold all the cards, is going to keep punishing America and saying we're not interested in deal making at this point. And I think eventually Trump is just like trying to create enough military presence that they can just like do boots on the ground, maybe a limited operation. I don't think it's going to be Karg Island.
I don't think
because they've been signaling Karg Island too much.
And like Trump is apparently part of why they talk about it is because Trump has had some decades-long fixation on it. But I think that the ground troop stuff is like that's brave. That's where a new territory thing. Like even if it's a limited contingent, just the psychological effect of that, the way that the American media is going to have to digest that, the social media tenor. I mean, what do you think Nick Fuentes is going to say? Yeah, like he'll have to probably like light himself on fire on stream. I mean, God willing. But I think that there's no. To me, there's just not like the conversation. There's not really another option aside from Trump trying to just hit them again on the weekend or maybe even during the week or whatever, and just to see what he can shake loose before they come to some kind of deal in which he's not going. I just don't know how he can save face at this point. That's where I'm getting tripped up.
Yeah, the two competing interests here are like Trump's unlimited narcissism and his reluctance to to do an about face, or to de-escalate, but then also the very obvious impact that this is having on the markets, which he cares about quite a bit. Like, he's getting boss calls.
Oh, this is funny.
Okay.
This is really funny.
Man, I feel bad for the Iranians who trusted the U.S. not to fuck this up spectacularly. It was pretty common Iranian diaspora opinion a few weeks ago that this would turn out well, unless that was all a psyop. Yeah. No. Unless that was all a psyop. It's crazy.
That's crazy. It couldn't be.
Yeah. No. No, this time it was different. This time it was so different. Like, it was so different this time. Every other time where we're like,
also, you know who I've
here
always,
are the necessary reasons for American military intervention. And then we go, oopsie, turns out it was actually an incredibly bloody affair and they had no interest in like liberating the people.
You know who I have always trusted when it comes to knowing what's going on inside of Iran? The Iranian diaspora.
Yeah.
It's you know, my first thought, always. The same thing with the Cubans, too.
It's just like ContraPoints has just become Hillary Clinton points. Like, that's it. It's just Clinton points. I know it's Hasbara points, we've said, but like all of her takes are just like, well, the Democrats would have done this better, right? It's fucking ridiculous. Endless smoke from David. The contempt I feel for the exiles who trusted Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu to carry out their liberation war is immeasurable. Iranians will suffer horribly, and so will the whole world, which a literal idiot could have predicted. Oh my God.
Oh yeah. Oh,
my goat.
Yeah.
My queen.
Yeah. Fucking. Yeah. I'm sorry. I forgot. I've been calling her Miss Frizzle. But I'm like, where did she come from? She's just an Iranian exile who lives in New York.
She's an Iranian journalist who, was a big dissident. And I guess she did like competent reporting at the time. But then when she moved to America and started getting like hundreds of thousands of dollars from the CIA, she became the most unhinged person that you've ever encountered.
I mean, I know nothing about her background. All I've done is I've seen her on like CNN or whatever, and I've seen her astute, engaging and informed commentary about yourself. But I didn't understand why she was on the TV. Was my main question.
What do you mean? Anyone that will say President Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu, you are the greatest. When you say that, Jake Tapper will be like, please come on the broadcast and yell at the mayor of New York. You know, Tapper is he's salivating at the prospect of an Ellison takeover. He is just like gearing himself.
Might even say,
what?
Jake Fapper.
Yeah, he's fapping. He's fapping so hard to that. Yeah, I know. Mehdi Hasan and Trita Parsi, who have never lived in Iran, who have no family there, who have never faced imprisonment and assassination plots by the regime, now obsessively targeting and bullying me, using their platforms to spread misinformation.
Sorry, I love that. For security and safety reasons, I can't substantiate my claims.
Yeah. But one day I will reveal in how full the misinformation they keep repeating has been used these days by the Islamic
when did she
Republic.
post this? Has it been a day? No, it was this morning.
What the fuck? This is this morning.
Whoa, what? It's
Mullah Mehdi Hasan. You have always behaved like an intolerant mullah. That's so funny to say about Mehdi Hasan.
It is pretty.
He's so
it's
fucking.
Like,
he's so
a
fucking
funny guy to say that about.
Yeah, he's so. I mean, I love him. I think Zateo is a wonderful outlet, but like he is the biggest lib of all time. Like he is. I think he literally is the last true defender of liberalism. He's the only guy on the planet that even he's actually changed his tune a little bit as of late, but like. He was quite literally the last guy, the last soldier, the last samurai of liberalism. Okay?
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you're welcoming the bombs getting dropped on your country, then like the last person, then like the only person left you have to criticize is Mehdi Hasan. You know what I mean? Like it's the fuck else are you gonna do? You've already thrown in your lot with the people who are like, you know, like churning your country into Swiss cheese. Fuck them.
Anyway, Mehdi is a liberal. I mean, yeah. I mean, he's anti-Zionist, of course, but yeah, he. Have you ever listened to him talk to like? I looked at the transcript of his interview with the foreign vice minister of Cuba, which I also, because I was, you know, about to interview him as well. And like half the conversation is literally like, how dare you say that like the country's like protests are being propped up by the CIA? Like how could you say that? Like it's all like you know, there's a little bit of a victim blaming, and he's an incredible debate lord, and I really respect his, I really respect how he debates. But the reality is he does do a reliable job of like undermining victims of American empire sometimes. He has changed a little bit, though. I will say he has changed a little bit as of late. Have you debated him? I mean, we've had, and the same with China as well. But like we've had, what do you call it? We've had conversations. I'm not going to elaborate, but like we've had conversations where we find ourselves in agreement more often than disagreeing.
After Sam Cedar, he has the only watchable Jubilee thing. I think. Trump.
What is this? Reza wrote the same statement, and then Yashar. Politico quotes two Trump administration officials on background who say that Reza Pahlavi is not considered a viable option as a leader in Iran. Dude, there is one thing about Trump that is consistent. He can't stand losers. Like this is the same.
I mean, it's
the
just
same
like with Maria Machado.
Yeah. He does not even give any breathing room to that shit. Where he'll just be like, nope, not gonna happen. You're a fucking loser.
Loser. Machado don't. Bye. Yeah, no, I think he also though understands that like part of the way that you have to resolve these situations, because this is like, remember how in Cuba they figured out, oh wait, fuck, there's nobody we can turn to.
Yeah.
So we're just going to have to, no matter what happens, we are going to have to use some of the same people. Yeah. And so I think they've learned a lesson about diaspora.
You mean in Venezuela?
No, in Cuba, because that's what they're talking about now. Like in their leaks, they're saying that like, oh, well, we're, you know, like you have Rubio saying that they would even leave people in place or whatever to accomplish whatever it is the fuck that they want to do.
For the record, for better or for worse, the Cuban government is very ideologically committed. I think more so than Venezuela is, more so than Delcy Rodriguez.
Well, they've also been under this position, like Venezuela, the Bolivarian Revolution. You know, it's been like 20 years of the Bolivarian Revolution, or 25 years of the Bolivarian Revolution.
There's a difference.
What?
The Venezuelan system was implemented through democracy. It is inherently a revisionist system in and of itself. It's the most like. Just like with Chile, it is a socialist system that transitioned towards socialism by way of the democratic process. Cuba had a revolution.
It's true.
And I think that is a genuine, very, very significant difference. If you achieve your communist system or your socialist system militarily, even if the Cuban Revolution wasn't initially socialist, it became a socialist revolution, right? And the reality of the matter is those systems are infinitely more resilient to outside pressures than seemingly the communist propaganda. That's crazy. Brother, whose broadcast are you watching? It's been years. Hello? Like, what the fuck? This is so funny when people go, wait a minute, what?
Hold on a second.
Wait a minute, what are you saying right now? Like, that's so funny. Brother, you're surrounded. I don't know if you know this. You are surrounded. Look around. Now, I'm still sympathetic to any attempt. Make no mistake. But it's, you know, impossible not to realize that the revolutionary struggle brings about a much more resilient system, even when it's not socialist in design. The Islamic Revolution is a great example of this.
I mean, I would also say that, like, because it's like part of what explains the resiliency, at least, resilience, is that the U.S. has proven, in the case of Cuba, in the case of Chile, in the case of Venezuela, that no matter what the structure of your system is, they will try to work against it. And it turns out that societies that have a free and open press, that societies that have, existing permitted multinational investment and present from the United States, for example, present, it was shown that those were opportunities that were really.
Do you see this? We have an Enver Hoxha hater. Get out of my sight, dude. Dude, in Albania, people have been executed in an open field. You don't even know what you're talking about. This is an Enver Hoxha hater, dude. Between me and China, we have 1 billion communists in the world. How dare you? How dare you?
I just like also like the standard of I know that
wait, hold on. I got to Albania mentioned. Albania mentioned, just even reluctantly, but still.
I just like the level of atrocity that he chose to, Pinochet had a fucking stadium massacre. In Albania they have one field. They got one field.
Anyway, he keep going. Sorry.
No, I mean it's the U.S. will use whatever method they can, and democratic societies, they give them the things that we respect and enjoy about such societies are exactly the very weaknesses that can be exploited. And look, by the way, we should say that in the U.S., I would argue that our system is also exploited. We see, I don't know if you guys have heard much about this Israel lobby, but there are ways in which the structure of our media, and obviously they're
But what do you mean, Noah?
I
was in a coma for the last 2.5 years, or the last 80 years, as a matter of fact. But certainly, especially the comatose in the last 2.5.
So I think that's an example of it, and it's not just them. There are others, but they're the most successful and accomplished in being able to exploit the many tools present in our system that they can use.
Read the last message before they get suspended from the site.
Communism is literally Jewish. Oh, I love how he spelled bureaucracy.
Jewish bureaucracy, steal from others and make it a standard. Also, I hope no nukes will ever be dropped. If only there was an Albanian guy that had a solution for that. If only there was an Albanian guy that had a solution for that. Yeah, there was. His name was Enver Hoxha! And you're over here disrespecting his legacy.
Communism is literally Jewish.
Enver Hoxha was also Jewish.
Communism is literally Jewish bureaucracy. All right, Dasha Nekrasova.
What do you mean? She's based now, aren't they?
Dude,
based
no,
now?
Did you not see?
Oh, wait, she was anti-Semitic to you right after.
Yeah.
And what did she say?
Jewish aggression.
Yeah, you're doing Jewish aggression. That's so funny.
That based on the tenor and tone of these in-depth, detailed, and constructive conversations, which will continue throughout the week, I've instructed the Department of War to postpone any and all military strikes against Iranian power plants and energy infrastructure for a 5-day period, subject to the success of the ongoing meetings and discussions. So you do see the president opening the window of this ultimatum that he had set on Iran, that he would strike power plants in that country if it did not reopen that very critical Strait of Hormuz, where all those energy tankers are waiting to go through. It's causing the price of oil to spike. Iran had threatened very severe retaliation, not only on energy strikes, but also on facilities in the Gulf. Now, some big questions remain, namely who the U.S. is talking to, because remember the president had said that the Iranian leaders that he thought he could work with had been killed. Now he says that those conversations are ongoing and, according to him, very fruitful. So very significant development, I think, this morning, and does lead you to believe that the president has, or is at least searching for something of an off-ramp here.
Yeah, absolutely. And we will see what more we learn about that potential off-ramp. Kevin, really appreciate it. Thank you. Sarah?
All right, joining us now, CNN senior military analyst and the former Supreme Allied Commander of NATO, Admiral James Stavridis. Thank you so much for being here. This just came in to us this morning. The president saying, look, we're having talks and they're going well. Is that a surprise to you? Because a lot of people don't realize that oftentimes, even in the midst of war, there are always sort of talks going on, but there is the issue of who is leading Iran. Apparently, they know who that is and they've been talking to them.
Apparently.
Well, first and foremost, let's all just say, wow.
Who's Trump talking to? Iran says they're not talking to the U.S. Is he talking to himself? No one is alive. Yeah, he just keeps... Yeah, he just...
I do think that, like, the real secret to Trump... Like, I can't believe none of his advisors have, like, figured out, like, why don't they just give him, like, a phone and be like... Listen, we've set it up so that like you can talk to Iran and talk to Iran, and then it's just like you know, some it's like a chat bot.
I'm on the other side. President Trump, we are willing as long as you de-escalate. Ghalibaf is by no means a moderate within Iran's political world, let alone pro-U.S., but America is attempting to place a powerful individual within a still powerful system in the same bind that Delcy Rodriguez was in. Accede to all of America's plans or be marked for death. Scoop. The Trump administration is quietly weighing Iran's parliament speaker as a potential partner and even future leader as it looks for a diplomatic endgame. An administration official tells me he's a hot option, but says they're still testing multiple candidates.
I wonder what it's like to be the reporter who writes this story and to wonder if you're writing out somebody's death notice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm not saying that that's their intention,
yeah,
but it is like...
Also, every time they say an individual is like... every time they say an individual is like potentially being marked as like the party that they'll negotiate with, they keep coming out and going, abso-fucking-lutely not. Iran is fighting for humanity. The world is either with Gaza and against this colonial terror regime, or it stands with the Epstein class and child torturers. There's no middle ground. I mean, they did this with Larjani as well, who was obviously the more pragmatic individual amongst all of the people that were in control, and Larjani was until the very last moment posting about how, like, you know, I welcome death, and there's nothing you can do. We're gonna fucking stick it to the Zionist regime over and over again.
I just don't know what the fuck any of this is supposed to be about, or what they're supposed to like. It's just like, so we name a guy, but everybody knows that if we name a guy, then everybody's gonna think we're gonna kill him. So then it's like, all right, then why did you name the guy if you aren't gonna kill him? It's all so...
Also, every time they kill a guy, there's like 8 other guys that are way more hardcore that replace them.
Oh yeah, well that's the other truth
like
of this.
You just keep electing or appointing people into that position that are literally like famous for saying Iran needs to get nuclear arms tomorrow.
Yeah, it's like, the U.S. blew up in a drone strike. This guy who got a doctorate from the University of Kent and loves talking about poetry in public or whatever, and they've replaced him with a guy who in Iran they call Dr. Death. Like that's the fucking obviously I'm exaggerating quite a bit, but it's like that's the tenor of the headlines in English that we're presented with every time this shit happens.
Yeah. Alongside military bases, those financial entities that finance the U.S. military budget are legitimate targets. U.S. Treasury bonds are soaked in Iranians' blood. Purchase them, and you purchase a strike on your headquarters and assets. We monitor your portfolios. This is your final notice.
We monitor your portfolios. This is your final notice.
Yeah,
that's actually, I gotta say, man, it is like crazy how like we've just been looking at a bunch of different tweets or whatever, and the only like things that are like bars that have like stuck in my head are like, oh, it's the Iranians quoting Iraqi militias quoting the Quran, Iran issuing like some pretty good subtle threat. Like it's beast mode. I'm afraid.
Beast
mode. I'm afraid.
Are we allowed to have some good news for at least 1 minute?
You
And,
are awful.
it's going to be a roller coaster, but I think this is good.
Sorry, you know what? I should have actually said it's good that we keep slaughtering children in Iran at the behest of Israel. It's totally good, and it's totally going to work out. Yeah, and America's not eating dick on a daily fucking basis as it escalates to further and further spectacular defeats. Is manufacturing consent so we can say that they rejected the deal to legitimize a big attack to try to gain support? I just don't see that that's going to work. Yeah, Iran is putting fucking belt to ass on a daily basis. And there are still people, I guess, who don't want to see that there is a shellacking taking place. It's fine, you know? If you could change one thing and one thing only to make the world a better place, what would it be? End American imperialism. Like, that's it. Or, I mean, end capitalism, obviously. End the global system of capitalism. LARPer. What am I LARPing? What is the LARP? Would you end capitalism or religion? Capitalism. It's not even a question.
Did you ever have to like go to services as a kid though?
No.
It's really
Yes,
boring,
and
dude.
Sarah, you're exactly right.
Just saying.
There's almost always kind of at least back channel conversations. I've been hearing about them from several sources. And here's what you want to watch as this roller coaster
You're a
unfolds.
fake
I'll
socialist,
give you,
capitalist scum.
3 things to watch. Number one.
Yeah, I'm the LARPer. Guy who is LARPing as a fucking ultra in my chat.
Try hard.
Yeah.
That ain't that right.
Yeah, try hard to engage in capital accumulation, bitch, instead of fucking posting in here.
Where are literally Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff? Because they are the ones who are going to be the U.S. side of this. Keep an eye on
Admiral
their
James
normal
Stavridis.
counterparty, the Iranian foreign minister,
Carlyle Group,
still
if I'm
alive
not
by all
mistaken.
accounts. Abbas Aroghi is his name. So watch those 3. Where are they? Are they popping up, for example, in a place like Geneva? Number 2, watch the Marines. The Marines are still kind of chugging along toward the Gulf. The first big Marine force gets there in 7 days. Another one right behind it 2 to 3 weeks later. And then number 3, all eyes are going to continue to be on the Strait of Hormuz. Again, this is good news, but we just heard from our gas guy, and he laid out pretty clearly the strait's going to have to open before this is going to really turn into good news. But bottom line, Sarah, yeah, it's always better to be talk than bombs away.
Joining us now, CNN political and global affairs analyst Barak Ravid. This just came in this morning, and so I know it's a fast thing to have to try to figure out what happened here, but what do you know about
Barak 8200 Ravid.
this? This was a bit of a surprise, at least to many who thought that deadline was fast approaching.
Yes, I think it was a big surprise. At least last night I spoke to several U.S. officials and none of them thought, none of them thought that the ceasefire is coming or that there's any...
in a capitalist country, profiting off of capitalism, pretending to be a communist? Okay. You're not, though. So why are you defending capitalism? You're broke. You're broke as fuck. You got no capital. Why are you defending capitalism? Let's say I'm making out like a bandit, okay? And I'm still saying that there's a better future possible. What the fuck are you doing? Show me the deed to the factory, bitch. Where is the deed to the factory? You got no capital. You got no bitches. You're in a fucking Twitch chat defending this system that is dominating your life. Yeah, broke ass, not even a gifted sub. You don't got no subs, broke boy. Anyway, let's continue.
Opening, and I think that from what I learned in the last few minutes is that over the weekend, several countries from the region tried very hard.
Close presses. Thank you for the
at
100
least
gifted
buy
subs.
more time. And
I would like to have a discussion about how you contradict yourself on a daily basis. Let me guess. You're going to repeat exactly what that other chatter said, which is that I'm rich. I'm rich, and yet I advocate for the poor to have more. You know, for ordinary people to live long lives of dignity. Is that... Well, we can start with that. Wow, I've never heard that one before, dude. I know. Everyone here knows too. This is not a call out. You're glazing me. You love capitalism. You're just fucking glazing my ass. When will you understand this does not have impact anymore? You can keep promoting it over and over again. It hasn't stopped me. I'm not trying to glaze you. Why would you hate on someone who's broke? I don't hate on broke boys. I hate on broke boys who defend capitalism, a system that they say I benefit from as I'm engaging in critique. Okay, you're too stupid to understand what I'm saying, I think, and it's okay. This is the exact same energy as people being like, I can't believe you said Nick Fuentes. I can't believe you made fun of Nick Fuentes for being gay and Mexican. No, man. I made fun of Nick Fuentes for being an existing contradiction because one can be a class traitor, but one can't be a gay Mexican neo-Nazi. Okay? It doesn't make sense. That was a stream lag. Okay, do you donate if you want to go against capitalism? The answer is yes, but I don't think that's going to change your equation.
Sort of prolonged Trump's 48-hour ultimatum to the Iranians to try and get some sort of diplomacy going. And those countries spoke to both Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi and White House envoy Steve Witkoff to try and get more time. And I think that at least this initial effort, as we saw, was successful because it managed to get Trump to say, okay, I'm giving it another 5 days for diplomacy to see if we can get something going. By the way, those talks, as far as I understand, are not just about the Strait of Hormuz. They're about trying to launch a diplomatic process that ends the war. Obviously, the Strait of Hormuz is a very big part of it, but it is not just something that is focused on the Strait of Hormuz. It's much wider.
Yeah, I mean, that's huge. If indeed they're talking about how to end this war and that those conversations are actually going on. You mentioned the foreign minister involved in this. So there is someone, because at some point, President Trump said that he didn't know who to talk to because so many of the leadership had been killed. It sounds to me like what you're learning is that the foreign minister is very much involved in this and maybe heading this up. So does it appear there is a diplomatic path out of this?
Well, it's a big question mark. You know, it just happened 30 minutes ago. And, you know, I think, President Trump decided to give it more time. I think was a good decision. But it still doesn't mean that an agreement is around the corner. And it also doesn't mean that the talks that are ongoing with Iran's foreign minister, who is, I think, his main quality at the moment is that he's the only one who answers the phone over there, because many other people are in hiding and are not communicating over the phone. So it doesn't mean that the leadership that is running the show right now, mainly the commanders of the IRGC, that they are ready for any kind of deal. The Iranian foreign minister, although he's a government official, senior government official, he does not call the shots. Or at least he's only one part of a much bigger decision-making process. So I think, you know...
Sorry, I'm just fucking cracking up. And look, I did not notice this before. Look at the photo,
exactly
the thing on the wall.
It's Herzl.
Yeah, it's Herzl.
Of course. It's Herzl.
Listen, even when you are become
very famous journalist in America, part of the hasbara, is that you always be showing the important figures in the state.
Yeah, Trump proved he doesn't work for Israel.
Wow. Yeah,
Wait,
the
how
last month has definitely done that.
Yeah, no,
for
definitely.
sure.
Bro, you got like literal fucking defenders of Israel for their entire careers, like liberal Zionists, openly coming out and being like, maybe we're a little bit too occupied by the state of Israel, like Democrats. Like that's insane.
Like,
and you're over here being like, Trump proved he doesn't work for Israel.
Like you have like the pod, like these days, like the pod save guys sound like fucking Walton Mearsheimer. I don't know what to tell you, man. It's mad fun. Like I welcome it.
Yeah. God damn, that's a long ass fucking Jesus Christ.
Wow, I'm now seeing this too.
And
Hold
second,
on.
keep our expectations low when it comes to the ability to get a deal. There's more time on the clock, which is super important because a U.S. strike on Iranian power plants would have triggered a massive Iranian retaliation against power plants all over the region, against desalination factories, against critical infrastructure, which would dramatically escalate this war. So the fact that President Trump gave it another 5 days is a hugely important step and hugely important decision, because it means that he understands that, you know, what kind of escalation such a strike would trigger, and that he's willing to try and find a diplomatic offer.
This just into us right now, Iran is now denying that they are in talks with Washington. This is just an hour after President Trump claimed the U.S. has had productive conversations with Tehran. According to Iranian state-affiliated media outlets, Iran accused Trump of trying to lower energy prices and buy time for military plans. Earlier this morning, Trump said he was putting military strikes on Iran's power plants on hold for at least 5 days, pending the outcome of these talks. That is what he put on Truth Social. Joining us now, Democratic Congressman Jake Auchincloss of Massachusetts. Thank you so much. Okay, so we just got this in that Iran is denying that they're having talks with the president's people. What do you make of all this? Because the president has backtracked on a deadline to what he called obliterate power plants in Iran if they didn't open the Strait of Hormuz.
Sarah, good morning. Thanks for having me on. The president has backtracked on almost all of the original strategic rationale that he dripped out to the American public after the war started. I'm sure there are
Dude, CNN coverage on this has been incredible because on the one hand, it's like they literally have a Unit 8200 agent of the Israeli state, and then they immediately go to Jake Auchincloss, who is like one of the most pro-Israel Democrats out there. It's incredible. Jake Auchincloss. It's not a single moment is spared here. No alternative perspectives will be heard.
I mean, it's just funny because, like, at this point, they are. It's like, you know what this reminds me of? Actually, remember the Never Trump wave in 2016 and 2017?
Oh my God, yes.
Like, essentially, so like for those of you who were like, you know, in diapers at that time, there was this, like, in 2015 and 2016 when Trump emerged as a candidate, the American media went overtime, crazy overtime, to find the Republicans who stood against Trump. Yeah. And you're talking about like people who then, as now, represented like 8%.
There is no real constituency for a liberal Zionist Democratic Party operative who's like saying, oh, the problem is how we're going about this. It doesn't exist. There's no real constituency. This person's position does not represent a real Democrat, okay? There are 1 million polls that show this reality. This is 13% of the base of the party. 13%. You might as well put fucking Ben Shapiro up there as like a lifelong Democrat or something. It's ridiculous. Did you see Bernie say Israel committed genocide? Yeah, Bernie has... My headcanon is Bernie saw that Netanyahu got assassinated and believed it, so he's like, I can't keep saying Netanyahu's Netanyahu's genocide. Now I have to say Israel. It brings me great shame.
It brings me great shame. No,
Yeah.
I do think that I mean, his statements have been getting like slowly but progressively like harsher over time.
I mean, it's just, I don't care. He's fucking 850 years old. I just don't give a shit. I think like yes, it's totally valid to criticize him. It's totally valid to criticize him. But I think people that just like only laser focus on him are also like kind of ridiculous.
And like I mean, something that I've been thinking. So Brandon and I are doing our Israel-U.S. relationship miniseries that comes out in a couple months. And like one of the things I've been spending a lot of time doing is just like reading from like the 40s and 50s and 60s, and the degree to which like entire generations of Americans who identified with the political left prior to the 6-Day War, like were raised in an environment of like real ironclad identification with Israel. Like it's hard to shake, and it's some of what you hear. It's like what I hear out of Bernie's mouth most of the times he talks on it. Like you just hear that identity. Like you hear like 80 years, like an 80, like an idea of what Israel was that was formed 80 years ago.
Bernie is Bernie has the Stalinist position in 1948.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he's like, yes, Israel is a socialist.
Or
it's going to be the Soviet.
You know who
base.
else's position from 1948?
Who?
Fidel Castro.
No.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Somebody, I don't think it was Grandin, but somebody had pulled this out recently on Twitter.
Oh my God.
And I thought it was really impressive because but he contextualized it. Like it's about like how Castro was at that point a disciple of Eddie Chivas, and like he gave a speech that was like, like somewhat pro-Israel or something.
The only L
yeah,
he's
it was
ever
Grandin.
taken.
It was Grandin. Okay.
The only
L.
L.
It's a good thread.
Bro, this is like these guys, unironic. I mean, he's not alone in this. Like, I think a lot of people legitimately thought that like, cause Ben Gurion is like a socialist and all these guys.
It's a few different things. The biggest one though, and this is like the hardest one to wrap heads around because it like changes. It changed like essentially it's because like why did a bunch of Jews from Europe go to the Middle East?
Yeah.
It's because after the Holocaust, the governments or the countries from which they came didn't want them back, and Western governments, the UK, the United States, Canada, they didn't want to take them in. We weren't taking them in before the Holocaust, and there was not a whole lot of political appetite for taking them in after. And so there was like a sense of like, among many other reasons, like there was a sense of, oh, well, this is the historically just thing that we can do. And so I think that there is like, I without knowing like all of the particularities of how everywhere else around the world reacted to the Holocaust, an event that was then being discovered day by day, frankly, at that point, I think it is like, the questions that were live in the world, what I'm describing is all of the reasons that the Palestinians' rights to self-determination and to their own land were neglected. That's all I'm essentially describing there was what was the motive for people to have thought it was a good idea in the first place.
And I think, well, the position of the USSR is very obvious. Like they did, I think, to a certain degree, the factors that you just mentioned were obviously present. They also thought that they could like establish a base of Soviet influence because these guys were sympathetic. At least they thought they were sympathetic against Western intervention in the region, right? Because they were like, oh, these guys are socialists. We arm them. Maybe their calculation also considered that like either pan-Arabic nationalism was not going to pan out, or potentially that they thought that like they had a lot of the pan-Arabic movements initially did align with Western forces, right, against the Ottoman Empire. So from their estimation, they would have been like they would have been more receptive to Western influence as opposed to Israel potentially. But they very quickly found out that wasn't the case anyway. And slowly but surely they changed their tune and became anti-Zionist. But same with MLK. MLK was also...
but it's generally speaking, until the 6-Day War, Israel was considered a liberal and left-wing cause. It just was. That was the reality. The Democratic Party and liberals within the Democratic Party, Jewish liberals in the Democratic Party, were correctly seen as like the most like strident and aggressive advocates for Israel, and the Republican Party and the Republican Party, Eisenhower, Dulles, they were not considered as good friends of Israel as say Adlai Stevenson would have been. So I think that like it's I mean that's just how it was at the time. That's how they saw it.
I do think that I mean there was obviously like clear-eyed anti-Zionist Jews in the the labor Bund, the Jewish Bund movement, but it is so interesting that like a guy who directly experienced like the rise of Nazis, Einstein, was like very clear-eyed in his assessment of what the Zionist brigades were doing and what it would eventually turn into. And yet so many other people who were not directly involved in any way, shape, or form from afar were like, no, this is good. This will be a good thing.
I mean, there was essentially like, because also like the JQ, the Jewish question, and the idea of like where should Jews go or whatever, and Zionists, accepting the anti-Semites premise and running with the idea of like, well, there's this place in the Bible, etc. There were a lot of people who understood that, all right, well, even if we accept that premise, even if we think that there is a place where Jews should be in the Middle East, the idea that it should be a Jewish nation state, where Jews have a specific state character and a political, like a political entity in which they are able to have privileges, with the implication perhaps being that there would be one for the Arabs. History unfolded differently, but there were a number of, there were people like Einstein, or even the first leader of Hebrew University in Israel, a guy named Judah Magnus. I think that there is like there were a lot of people, even people who would have considered themselves participants in the Zionist project, who made all of those same points, and who more, unfortunately, co-signed what became a project that they would have, had they seen it evolve to what it became even within 20 years, would have started using the language, would have started making comparisons with the Nazis pretty happily.
Yeah, insofar as the critique of Zionism was locked into a critique of his disalignment with capitalist imperialism, many early ways of communist politics kept an undeveloped theory of settler colonialism left to be clarified. I don't agree with this assessment at all. I think this assessment is like utter. The Leninist perspective for a white guy at that time was, I think, pretty open about anti-colonial and settler colonialism in general. Am I wrong?
I just think it's more that he's saying like it's the idea that it says kept undeveloped. I like the tweak that I would make is that
even Stalin.
But it was more that it was just underdeveloped. Like for the moment, it didn't adapt to the times. I mean, Stalin ended up co-signing the project. He's voted for partition. I think that it's more that like people did not understand what Israel was, what its leaders wanted to do. Because also remember, the Nagba was a secret plan. We still do not know the details. We still do not know the details of how it was organized. We still we know some. We know that there were meetings. Ben Gurion was a part of them. They actively listed the villages that they wanted to depopulate. That they want, like there was like the there was, from the moment that it began taking place, Israel also began telling a line saying, listen, they're running. We didn't kick them out. They ran. So I think that
is true. There was, I always forget that like we are operating in the aftermath of like the discoveries of the new historians, and also like a tremendous amount of work that like Palestinians have put into raising awareness of like what the Nakba looked like. I do forget sometimes. It's almost like, it's a little bit like, as you said, the Holocaust and the full scale of the atrocities were only being understood at the time because like people didn't have a full understanding of exactly what had taken place.
I mean, consider what the media environment was in that time.
Yeah.
Like, there's a bunch of different ways to look at it, and all of which is not to, like, I want to be clear, none of this is to say that people made the right decisions, that excuses should be made for them for not seeing the truth. It's one of the great tragedies of history that we now have to live with. But it is like, if we want to actually understand like why it happened, why were our faves problematic in this moment, etc. I mean, these are the conversations you have to have.
What is this? Oh no, here we go again. Another worldwide Jewish conspiracy theory. I'm sure the kids in the cool kids club agree with you. What?
Bernie stole newspapers. Sorry, I love this arc. This is like to
the
me.
Nazis want to send the Jewish people to Madagascar. The ahistorical understanding here is frightening.
I don't know what he's referencing there because I don't know if he noticed this, but the Nazis, in addition to wanting to send the Jews to Madagascar, they also killed 6 million of them.
Yeah.
Maybe news to him. I don't know.
I don't understand what, like, maybe he's saying, maybe he's operating with the Grand Mufti theory. The Benjamin Netanyahu's famous
Listen,
Holocaust revisionist
Adolf
perspective.
Hitler was not history's biggest anti-Semite.
The Palestinian Grand Mufti was.
It was the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem who gave Hitler the idea for the Holocaust. In fact, Hitler's idea had been to take the Jews and to put them in a carnival, a circus.
Yeah.
But it was the Mufti who said, no, you should kill them.
Yeah. He had no idea. Islam has nothing to do with what I said. No, we're fucking memeing on you, brother. I think these are ideas that might be a little too complex for you, okay?
Yeah.
And don't worry about it.
Go back to Bluey, brother.
Channel conversations happening between Iran and the administration right now, but the reason we are hearing Iran flex this way is because they have a new strategic asset. When this war began, Israel and the United States had air dominance over Iran. Now that this war is 3 weeks old, they still have air dominance, but Iran also now has its own strategic asset, which is sea denial. Iran has demonstrated to the world that it can selectively close the Strait of Hormuz to international oil transit, and that is spiraling global markets.
That's what's
and Iran
spiraling?
understands that while it is operationally under stress from the tempo and the kinetics from Israel and the United States, it is
Okay, so
strategically
hold on, pause. We are now seeing what this is. Like, it's exactly what we said. There isn't like any actual like diplomatic.
It's also from CBS though, so
no. But my point is, but even that is like affirming this, which is just that it's like it's all going one way. It's all going one way.
According to CBS, citing a senior Iranian foreign ministry official, Iran has received points from the U.S. and they are being reviewed. It follows a slew of contradictory statements made by both the U.S. and Iranian officials on the matter. I don't think the Iranian officials are contradicting themselves.
No.
I don't think they're contradicting themselves. They're saying like the U.S. is desperate for mediation. We're not. I think this is CBS doing propaganda at the behest of Trump and Israel by making it seem like Iran is more invested in the mediation than they actually are. Trump is 100% buying time to try and take the strait. It's not going to happen. So stupid. I mean, I don't know. I'm not making any predictions, but I just don't see that happening. Okay, because of how easy it is to continue dominating it or making it like, or putting up a tremendous amount of penalties. It's fucking 2 miles wide, man. It's 2 nautical miles wide that oil tankers can pass through. It's 21 total miles, but most of it is too shallow. It's not deep enough. It's not very difficult to close the Strait of Hormuz, especially when you are Iran.
I do love also how it's like, there is just at no point it occurred to them also that it's not just oil that goes through there too.
Yeah.
Like it is like, it's not just like Iran's oil. It's not just Iran's oil.
Yeah. It's starter chemicals necessary for it's necessary, it's natural gas. It's so much. It impacts so much of the fucking commerce. It's ridiculous. What are the odds? What are the odds of a coup or a civil war in Iran? I mean, there's always some odds, but it doesn't seem very likely. Yeah, fertilizers, helium.
I mean, the urea stuff is the urea. I don't know how it's pronounced. The fertilizer shit is especially jarring.
Yeah,
because that's one where we're not maybe going to see the impact so immediately. I mean, this is like it's part of what feels so weird about living in this time too, is that like media, the politics, the diplomacy, it's all like like everything like happens and stacks up on you like so quickly. I mean, even a pandemic in the globalized world that we now live in, like, it begins in China and within a couple months, like the whole world shut down. And now it's like with this stuff, it's like, okay, well now we've finally encountered a crisis that's so substantial and so deep that it's actually gonna we don't know fully how bad things are gonna get. Like if you read oil analysts, like the ones I follow, at least on Twitter and others, like most of what they're saying isn't like, oh, like we're, you know, like things are, it's worse now than ever before, or whatever. Most of what they're saying, as I've seen it, has been this like reaction of, we don't know how bad this could get because we've never been here before, and the people in charge don't seem to particularly care about spelling out what the potential consequences could be.
Yeah. I will say another clear-cut marker that things are not going well is that like all these fucking Atlanticist shitheads are constantly, they got everything they wanted, and now that it's unfolding in this spectacular fuck up, they all keep making it seem like this is not what we wanted all along. Like when I see Foundation for Defending Democracy try to like critique Trump's ambitions, I'm like, well, this is you. You
signed. This is your thing. Like fucking own it, dude.
Yeah. What's going on? What, you got a problem with this? Like, this is what you wanted. It's happening. Why are you complaining? I don't understand. Like John Bolton backpedaling. Well, John Bolton is backpedaling because
John Bolton's backpedaling because he's being prosecuted by Trump. So
and also because no, he's also backpedaling because the MEK is dead in the water, and that's like, you know,
that's
they've
true.
given him
There
so much money.
It is wild how much of like diaspora Iran politics for years were dictated by MEK, and I think this conflict, at least at this stage of it right now, has totally marginalized them.
Yeah.
Like MEK used to buy off like fucking like Howard Dean. Right? Howard Dean was on the MEK payroll. You know, like they were all over American politics in all directions.
Yeah. Trump blinked first out of a clear understanding that striking Iran's energy infrastructure would trigger direct and significant retaliation. As for negotiations, messages were clearly exchanged, but there's strong reason to doubt that Iran actually conceded. The regime is unlikely to reopen the strait without meaningful concessions from the U.S. From Tehran's perspective, this is a notable achievement. They didn't fold, didn't back down, and may have forced Washington to recalibrate its objectives. For Trump, the goal now appears to have shifted. No longer regime change, but reopening the strait. Bottom line is the conflict isn't over. It's still unfolding, but a potential path to de-escalation has emerged. Still, one key question remains. If in 5 days Iran hasn't reopened the strait, it's unlikely that threats alone will change that. Pressure without incentives rarely works. I mean, there you go. Oh, also, the exchange on Morning Joe regarding the Iran war, Joe Scarborough asked the question, is it a good thing that we're degrading Iran's military infrastructure, yes or no? And here is the opposition leader, Chuck Schumer. Let's hear what he had to say about this. Just to understand like what the current opposition party is saying about this
always
deeply...
looks like that fucking kid from Recess, dude.
The deeply unpopular war.
No, hold a second. You got to answer my question first.
Yeah.
Is it a good thing that Iran, and I think you would agree with me, epicenter of terrorism in the world since 1979,
I love that
You're from Florida! You're from Florida! More terrorism has come out of Florida than Iran in the last 50 years. I guarantee it.
Also, the like, this is just, you're just repeating the MAGA talking points to try and justify this. Like, it's just so stupid. Every fucking supposed liberal, right? If you want to call Joe Scarborough that, even though he fucking kissed Trump's ring initially.
He's not a liberal.
I mean, he's not, but like, these are billed as like liberal programs.
I know.
It's unfucking believable that like all of the outspoken libtards on television from the political class to the media class are just basically reconfirming Trump's idiotic talking points that are based on nothing, by the way, complete nothing, and then turning around and trying to make a process critique. This is not a valuable argument. This is not a reliable argument. You're literally saying the same shit that you guys said during the Maduro kidnapping. Oh, he's a tyrant. Oh, he's ruthless. Oh, he's brutal. But they should have, I don't know, not fucking kidnapped him. If he's a brutal, ruthless tyrant and you're agreeing with that, why the fuck would any average American turn around and go, no, let's not be a pussy about this. Actually, it's great that we fucking kidnapped him. You're justifying the argument for your opposition and then simultaneously making the most like wishy-washy, middle of the ground bullshit fucking critique that literally does not reach the salience for any person at all. Who the fuck would go, oh, Adolf Hitler was kidnapped. Oh no, it was the process that was destroyed in this situation, and I hate it. Okay, it's fucking stupid. My clip is higher quality. I mean, it doesn't really matter. Is this the? It's shorter, so we're gonna go with the longer.
Good that their military infrastructure is being degraded to the degree that it is? Yes or no?
You can't, because it's a premature question. What is going to happen in the next several months?
No, I can ask that question.
Well, you can't separate.
I mean, that's a good. If you're Chuck
So you
Schumer
have
and you don't want to and you're trying to thread the needle that you're threading, that's a pretty good answer. Which is, why are you trying to get me to answer a question about how this is going to go when we're like barely into it?
Military side of it, I can show you my chart, but I think I threw it away. You have the military side, you have the political side. I'm simply asking on the military side, is it good, regardless of whether we agree with going in or not, is it good that Iran's military infrastructure has been seriously
And again,
degraded?
I have to tell you, Joe, first, you can't, what's going to happen 3 months from now? Is it worth it? What's going to happen? Will the world economy collapse? Will something happen even worse? Will the whole energy infrastructure of the world go up in smoke? So you have to, when they do it without planning, when they do it without understanding.
Yeah, that's the problem. Not that like this act alone.
We didn't do it with the planning. We needed better plans.
It's just crazy. Like, no, dude, you can just say, say this is fucking unacceptable. Sad to see Chris Murphy echoing false neocon narratives about Iran's threats to the U.S. It's not sad to see.
He can't help himself.
It's by design. At some point, we have to wake up to the reality that this is by design. Okay? I think that the entire infrastructure of communication on the Democratic Party is basically to make it seem like they have this wishy-washy approach to what Donald Trump is saying, but they secretly fucking love it. Okay? That's it. Wake up. It's absolutely controlled opposition with like very few Democrats who genuinely are saying, nah, this is fucking bullshit. Okay? That's it. Why else do they always find just the right amount of votes to not launch a reasonable critique, like any sort of process critique even, that they claim that they have with the administration's actions?
Also,
there's always enough spoilers in safe seats, mind you, because this is important. If someone was ideologically committed, right, to the cause, then they would come out and say, I'm voting against this. This is my principled stance. I don't want the War Powers Act to be called because Donald Trump is doing the right thing. I love Israel and I want American soldiers to die for Israel. But it's never the people that have said that, like Gottheimer or Moskowitz, that legitimately believe it. Or even now, what's his face? Goldman has come out and he's doing the
You mean my congressman?
Yeah, you're a congressman.
I'm letting you know. I'm making this like I am going to door knock for Bradlander. I want Dan Goldman out of my goddamn life.
It's unfucking believable that Dan Goldman is now like, oh, the settler terrorism must end. This is unacceptable.
I mean, look, but the Murphy thing annoys me because I think the Murphy thing gets at something that I think is a little bit more general, which is like not about like the specific commitment to the specific project of Israel in particular, or the Middle East even, but it is about like a return. Because Murphy was also the guy who had that really annoying tweet after the Trump won like Venezuela fuck up.
Oh yeah, that lives in my mind.
Yeah, no, and
we
like,
tried to do a soft coup in Venezuela, but Trump fucked it up.
And it's like, okay, pal. And part of what it gets at is, to me, is that like there is like a kind of like political liberal in this country who, you know, really like rather than trying to imagine a better future, rather than trying to imagine a new future, a different future, an alternative fucking path, what they actually want is to go back. They want to go back to like, you know, some time when foreign policy, like the premises of our foreign policy may have been the same, but the way in which we conducted it was with something, you know, with more honor or discipline. And that to me is like where I see like, you know, not just Murphy, but like you can see a whole class of Democrats.
But they don't see that the ground that they stand on is shifted so much that they think they can hearken back to a time when like liberal interventionism was could masquerade as like necessary evil or necessary violence.
It goes back to like, I think of Yugoslavia. I mean, like just this idea that there is like a role for American weaponry to be wielded in the world for good. That like in your head, it's like la la, like, you know, Alex Jones, la 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 liberal. I am reenacting the fantasy of 1941 in my head. you know, without realizing that, like, no, you're the baddies now. Like you're on the wrong side of this thing. And our discipline needs to be in not trying to blow stuff up.
Yeah. Yes. Talk more about how you hate Dems. I love this. This guy's a fucking pervert. He's like, oh, I'm clipping this so I can post it on all the nastiest third way. Keep the delusion going, guys. Yeah, we are the delusional ones. 13% of the Democratic Party have a favorable opinion of Israel, and we are the fucking delusional ones. You're right. Please wake up to this fucking reality that third way liberalism is done. Okay, there's no more base or no more support for neoliberalism in general. You are delusional, and you probably don't even work for any of these think tanks anyway. But you have been fed all of these fucking lies, and you think that this is actually somehow brilliant. Okay, this is brilliant analysis. You read a couple of these fucking think tank policy papers, and you thought, well, I want to come across as smarter than everybody else. So now you still think that Democrats putting this mealy-mouthed, wishy-washy bullshit as the controlled opposition party is actually is actually something that people could put their teeth on, that they actually represent the general attitude of the popular base. You and people like you are going to lead to a Tucker Carlson Reagan victory margin. Okay, that's the problem. That's it. Because someone is going to take advantage of this information vacuum. If the liberals don't actually become the anti-Zionist party right now, there is going to be someone who takes advantage of that.
Oh, it's so scary, man. That's the thing that's like really quite astonishing to me, is how quickly people on the right have like smelled blood on the water. And by the way, it's people on the right who have way more influence. Okay.
He literally is like an open defender. I knew that this was coming.
I mean, it makes sense, because it's like who is an axe to grind with protecting Democrats at this stage, except for that guy. But
pedophilic sex pest who's literally openly fantasizing about going on a paid sponsored trip to Israel now. That's your guy. That's your fucking guy, dude. Unbelievable. Anyway, go on.
There are people like Tucker Carlson and whomever, like they have way more motion and more influence over their like base and like over their party as well, like over the actual the machine apparatus. Like at the RNC, Tucker Carlson matters a lot more and than any of the other Democrats. Sorry to say it, Hasan, who have like made the similar effort to try and influence the Democrats to a position, you know, critical of Israel. Like the Republicans have been way more successful at influencing like the broad spectrum of people.
Yes.
Whereas I think Democrats have largely been influenced by the events as they've gone on.
Yes.
And so
it's going to turn into another dynamic where like, if there's a partnership between Tucker Carlson and like JD Vance, he can lean into Tucker's bona fides as the anti-Zionist.
He can use Tucker. Like that's the, like I mean, it's scary and it's sad, because I do think that like the longer you let things go on like this, where like you let them carve out that space and don't do anything for yourself, like you make it like, you know, you will just endlessly replay the 2024 election over and over and over and over again.
They don't realize that they're going to lose Democrats to a Republican, okay? They're going to lose Democratic voters. They don't understand. They think that the base will inevitably react in a partisan manner and will consistently vote for Democrats because they're so mad at Donald Trump. All it does, if JD Vance pulls, I'm just imagining different hypothetical scenarios here, right? JD Vance is noticeably quiet, noticeably absent from the conversation currently, okay? And he also understands how to communicate with liberals, even though he's a fucking gross, whiny loser. Let's say JD Vance actually severs ties with Donald Trump when 2028 comes around and does the thing that Kamala Harris was too afraid to do. And then JD Vance leans into Tucker Carlson to get this legitimacy, from Tucker Carlson's like populist rhetoric and Tucker Carlson's anti-Zionist rhetoric. Just as Donald Trump was able to effectively present himself as a peaceful dove to Kamala Harris's like endless militarism, JD Vance can totally dupe enough fucking people that way.
It was crazy how many people misheard the criticism that they're successfully duping people as I believe that JD Vance and Donald Trump are like anti-war.
Yeah.
Like there was, I mean, this is what I mean about like repeating 2024. It'll just be the same shit over and over. I do think the very interesting thing is, though, is that we do have more down ballot litmus tests for this stuff. Like I think we are seeing in Maine how a version of this plays out. Like whatever one thinks of Plattner, or whatever one thinks of what his, you know, how his agenda will be realized if he is to be elected, and what his beliefs may be, whatever, fine. The race as it is right now is that this guy is like he is, by staking out the position that he is in the, most like straightforward, aggressive way, we are getting a preview of how Democrats might respond to that in the future, which is to say Janet Mills is going negative crazy early. She's in part laying conditions for a general election to be much more difficult for him. Like I think it behooves one, again, not that I'm not saying that everybody has to get on the Plattner plane, but like they. Oh.
Can I just point to this? He said Cuba, China troops. One of the poorest nations in the Western Hemisphere paid me to do propaganda, is what this guy thinks. Like, at least with China is a fucking economic powerhouse. But like to say that like Cuba has any fucking money in the bank.
I have to run to go to meet somebody.
By the way,
be back.
Cuba is a literal state-sponsored terrorism. Do you know how fast the American government would apprehend and arrest me at the point of re-entry into the country if there was any sort of fucking money exchange that took place between me and the Cuban government? Are you that fucking delusional? I unbanned this guy simply because I wanted to hear how idiotic he is.
I gotta bounce. I had a thought. Oh yeah, the thought was this. To Hasan's point, I've met Cuban diplomats. I know some. I've been to the Cuban embassy, and I've been to other embassies in DC. I've met other diplomats. I've seen how it works. And when I tell you that you go to some countries that have substantially more poverty than even Cuba does, far more larger proportions of their population don't live in cities and are incredibly poor, fine, in sub-Saharan Africa, so forth. Okay, you step outside and you're standing in front of their embassy in DC, and what do you see? You see Mercedes, you see a limousine, you see a BMW, you see brand new cars. You go to the Cuban embassy, and a Cuban and a driver from the embassy, takes you to meet, a diplomat, for coffee at Busboys and Poets or some shit. And you know what that car is? It's a fucking 10-year-old Subaru. These are not these people don't have the fucking money to do in Israel, is what I'm saying.
That's why
it's not like
it's funny because they'll be like the Castro family is has its tentacles in the Cuban government. It's in deeply corrupt system, and it's like, dude, they have it's like the head of LGBT initiatives. They don't have this unimaginable and awesome power that they wield with the Castro name over the fucking. Over the current government. I don't know. It's just that also strikes me as odd as well.
Pisses me off. I gotta bounce.
All right.
I'll see you later. Later, guys.